Yes, yo. A couple of minutes late, but you know how it is. Trying to get everything together in hopes of having a wonderful show for you guys. Shout out to Lord of Slaughter. They say that they weren't able to submit a topic, but they are here for the show today. Can't be too chatty because they're driving. That's the kind of comment I really do respect, you know. You let me know early on. You let us know early on if you don't hear too much from me, it's because I'm driving. You know, I could appreciate that. Shout out to Daily Affirmations by Pauline, who says, "Good evening, good evening to you too, my dear." You know what it is. I like to come on here before we start the show officially. Give you guys heads up. By the way, if you can hear my voice, please drop a one for me in the comments. You can hear my voice, drop a one for me. Make sure I'm being heard. Um, so yeah, you guys know the deal. I like to come on here in time before the show starts officially. Let me just ask the chat. Okay. Trigger Happy just answered. Okay, so you guys can hear me. Right. So you know what it is. I like to come discussing tonight. And tonight's show, we will be discussing what's going on in Venezuela and what's to stop it being done in Burkina Faso. We're going to be discussing what transformative African leadership looks like in the 21st century. We're going to expose the Kissinger report on population control. We're going to look at examples of the sick Western mind. And lastly, we're going to talk about African beauty standards, how they have to be built from ground up. We're going to talk about those things tonight. Hopefully, we'll have a nice crew of people on the panel in the chat. Shout out to Black Steel. I'm gonna introduce him after the intro, but he stuck it out with me last week, just me and him on the panel, and we had a good time, man. What I'm gonna do now is start the show officially, and on the other side, I will drop Shoot the Breeze topic number 1, as well as introduce any all of my panelists. So do stay tuned. In the meantime, hit the like button, share the show on social media, invite a friend to check out the show. All right? Hang tight.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAC Radio. Welcome to the Bitter Medicine Podcast, where it's all about Black empowerment. Our show focuses on Black news and entertainment, arts, science, economics, history, people, and strategies that uplift, empower, and motivate Africans within the diaspora. And now your host, whose favorite color is black, Goku.
Welcome back to the Bitter Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Koku. Just want to remind you guys before we get the show rolling that this show is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. There are other shows on the network you are invited to tune into.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Peace, family. This is Oni, inviting you to listen to the pro-Black perspective, where Black problems are addressed with Black solutions.
Greetings, fam. Tune in to The Learning Curve with me, the Revolutionary Matron on KWAZ Radio.
You are listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio.
Yes, indeed. That's interesting. It used to be when a video was finished playing, they would unmute your mic automatically. I noticed they haven't been doing it now, just as a side note. But also want to remind you guys, tune into Brother Bakari, BBN Network. Tune into the Forecast Radio. Tune into Consider Cheek, Realm in the Bush, as well as tune to Kofi the Black Critic. I saw some new stuff from a few of them this past week, so make sure you guys are tuned in, subscribe, and actually go and partake in their shows. In the chat, D Webb says, "Happy New Year's, fam. Looking forward to the show." Appreciate that, Webb. Nelly says, "Good evening." Who else? I'm missing someone. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, "Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you." And you know what, man? I'm hoping for the best for all of us in this new year. 2025 was a tough one for me, but I'm hoping that 2026 and beyond for some time will be even better. With that said, let me welcome in my first and only panelist so far tonight. I'll be Black Steel. Black Steel, how are you?
I'm doing great, Coach. How about yourself, man?
I'm good, man. I'm hanging in there.
Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year to you, too. Good to see you again in the new year. With that said, you know what? Let's just get right into it, man. By the way, shout out to Buana. Like I mentioned last week, he had a death in the family. So that's why you haven't been seeing Buana in a few weeks now. We hope the best for Buana and may he be encouraged during this time, I know how it feels, man. So shout out to Buana. Shoot the Breeze, topic number 1 tonight says, if this can be done in Venezuela, what's to stop it being done in Burkina Faso? So this came with a link. Let me pull that up now. Should have done that earlier. My bad. So let's pull this up. And let me make sure it's set up for you guys to see. Let me share my screen with you guys. I really like to hear you guys' opinion on this topic as it's really fresh right now. But we're talking about Trump. Maduro and his wife have been captured and flown out of the country. Let's can you guys see my screen? That's interesting. Let me see. Oh, okay. They changed that. Okay. You guys can see my screen. Again, this is a video on Trump and how Maduro and his wife, the president of Venezuela and his wife, have been captured and flown out of the country. I'd like to hear you guys' opinion on it since it's such a fresh matter.
The United States, Donald Trump has just posted a statement on Truth Social. This is the first public acknowledgement by the United States. I will read it for you, just seeing this pop up on my phone as we speak while texting back and forth with senior advisors at the White House. From the President of the United States, the United States of America has successfully carried out a large-scale strike against Venezuela and its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. This operation was done in conjunction with U.S. law enforcement. Details to follow, according to the president. There will be a news conference, he says, today at 11 a.m. at Mar-a-Lago. He then punctuates it, as he often does, with thanks for your attention to this matter. It is signed by the president. So again, I want to repeat two of the key sentences in there. He confirms that the U.S. carried out this large-scale strike against Venezuela, and he says that its leader, President Nicolas Maduro, who has been, along with his wife, captured and flown out of the country. So According to the President of the United States, Nicolas Maduro is no longer on the ground in Venezuela. It leaves open a bit of a vacuum there in terms of leadership. It's not entirely clear who is effectively running that country at this time. I just want to get your immediate reaction to the news that we are hearing again in a Truth Social post from the President of the United States.
Well, this changes everything. This means that this was a regime change operation and that this was had some degree of coordination. Witnesses earlier described helicopters. Witnesses described low-flying aircraft. I was taken aback by what you just said, that Nicolas Maduro and his wife have been taken into custody. That means there were either local forces on the ground or local forces working with Americans to hand over the leader and bring him out of the country. An extraordinary development. We just saw a regime change operation take place quickly in the early hours. You said, does it leave a power vacuum? I know that for the last several months, there have been conversations going on through intermediaries with the generals and the top leaders around Maduro, trying to convince them to turn on him, to hand him over, to allow him to be arrested, and to get him to use the phrase what we had heard earlier, to cry uncle. He wasn't crying uncle, and now it seems he was arrested. An extraordinary development.
Now,
it
Richard,
started out with some boat strikes, and then it to a military campaign on land, and now a military operation and an arrest.
And Richard, that of course, it opens up a lot.
Development.
I apologize for interrupting again. That breaking news that according to the President of the United States, the U.S. has now successfully launched, carried out, as he says, what was a large-scale strike attacks in and around Caracas, the capital city of Venezuela. Beyond that, he says that the U.S. has captured and flown out of the country Nicolas Maduro and his wife. And Richard, I bring this up because it's significant for a variety of reasons. Nicolas Maduro, only a matter of days ago, said in a new interview that he was open to negotiating with Washington to combat drug trafficking, the first sign that this pressure campaign was taking its toll. The questions that it raises now are, was there any resistance by Maduro when this took place? Was this in some way negotiated with those around him? Those are questions we have on the ground. As you say, the U.S. swept in and did this under the veil of darkness. It took place very quickly. We don't know what may have occurred on the ground right now, but it raises a lot of real questions about what, if any, conversations did exist in any form with Nicolas Maduro, or if this was the first contact when, in effect, the United States military was knocking on his door and sweeping up him and his wife and taking them out of the country. Panama 2, Noriega. People, those who remember the story, he was accused of being a narco trafficker, refused to leave. U.S. forces swept in and grabbed him. To answer some of the questions, I know for the last several months there have been contacts through intermediaries with Maduro's inner circle to try to convince him to leave the country. He was not interested. He was resisting. This pressure campaign has been escalating. First with the boats, then with President Trump declaring him a narco-terrorist, then all of the U.S. military buildup in the region, the aircraft carrier strike groups, the submarines, the drones, aircraft. Then, shortly before New Year's, a land strike allegedly carried out by the CIA. Very few details about what was hit then. And now, overnight, a capture operation. You don't do a capture operation without attacking some military sites, because you need to clear the airspace, you need to clear away air defenses, you need to protect the helicopters and the troops that are going in to remove the person you're trying to arrest. So the U.S., President Trump just decided to pull a Panama 2 for New Year's and effect regime change in Venezuela. An extraordinary development. And you asked, was this coordinated? It could only have been coordinated with at least some people who turned on Maduro, because the people knew where he was. They knew where his family was. It sounds like he is still alive, and I would not be
surprised if we see him in front of an American court in the coming weeks or months.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC.
Yeah, that's an interesting presentation that occurred there. I'm curious if you guys think it's an act by the guy off screen who's sounding so kind of worried about what America's doing in Venezuela. Do you think he's legit worried about what's happening there? Because he also brings up Noriega and them as well too, which I could remember when I was a kid. Man, a lot to unpack here with this situation, because that's the problem. Shooter Breeze topic number 1 says, if this can be done in Venezuela, what's to stop it being done in Burkina Faso? I see some of you have comments already in the chat. Let me hear from a panelist first, and then I'll get to those comments. Keep the comments coming, by the way. First to begin with, let me welcome in D-Web this week. D-Web, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Happy New Year. You can hear me, brother? Are you able to hear me? I can't hear you.
I can hear you just fine.
Okay. It's good to be on, man, and talk about the subject at hand. Just having a little bit of experience myself with the military and things of that nature. But to answer your original question, there's nothing to stop it from being done anywhere in the world. You know what I'm saying? I just think that this is a situation where, if you've been paying attention to any of the politics out here, that Rubio, the Secretary of War, I think it's called these days, right? This is one of his pet projects. They've been trying to do a regime change war in Venezuela for quite a while, over a decade now, right? Whether it be for the oil or to appease the companies, the oil companies, or whatever they're trying to do. But that's been a pet project of theirs. And the moment Rubio was appointed, they were going to go full throttle with that. So this should be a surprise to no one. I will say with the one thing that America does is they actually they try to do a little PR campaign before they run in any country, right? At least if they're not doing it under the guise of the CIA or something like that, right? They normally try to do a PR campaign. So all you really have to do is pay attention to the signs. They've been trying to run a negative campaign against Venezuela for quite a while, right? And we're just seeing the aftermath of that, right? It's just kind of shocking to me how many people are actually cheering the shit on, which I shouldn't be surprised, because you live in a bloodthirsty country, right? They love to see things that happen on other places, because this country is kind of devoid of seeing the actual impacts of war, of actual bombs dropping, of actually people being, killed, people being taken hostage, things of that nature, right? So until like the chickens come home to roost, you will see more and more of this, particularly with this administration. Not to mention, this guy's on his way out, so he's gonna do his 4 years. He's gonna do whatever his handlers tell him to do for this term that he has, because he's leaving, right? He's selling out to the sun. He doesn't care what happens to the red cultists after this, or any of his base. He doesn't really care about any of that. He's gonna on a mission to complete whatever things that his handlers have laid out for him. And one of those things that they really wanted was to run up in Venezuela, take their oil and claim that it's drugs or whatever. It's like, you live in a country where literally like they give out opioids to people. That's how this whole thing, to act like these people care anything about drugs when these country club types love the powder. It's just funny to me, and it's just interesting to me how they could pull off a 2003 type of PR campaign, and a lot of people are still hanging on to that. So that's been the more interesting part. But to answer your original question, there's nothing outside of that's not their target right now, right? That's not their target at the moment, but it can be done anywhere in the world, right? So you need to get on your North Korea type of time, if you're asking me, and get you a nuclear program quick and fast and in a hurry, if you ask me. But that's all I got, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Well, I am having some, as per usual, I guess, I'm having some computer issues here, but it sounds like you're going through pretty good. I appreciate that, Webb. With that said, let me hit the chat real quick. Trigger Happy says, I watched when I watched Democracy Now! Weekly and saw the assassination attempt on Maduro and constant attempts to change the regime of Venezuela. America has wanted this for a long time. That kind of echoes what Webb was saying as well. Trigger says, apparently, too, following the story, he may have been sold out. There are also reports that a small team of the CIA was following his daily activities to make this a more swift operation. We have Roguish Son in the chat. Welcome to you. He says, facts. He says, this is just a test run to see how much of a pass they get away with. He says, but Professor Zhang has already predicted this. So I'm not sure who's Professor Zhang. Daily Affirmation by Pauline says, not only Burkina, but anywhere in the world. Yeah, that's what I thought about immediately, being from the Caribbean. I thought he could just go grab him and just tote him away somewhere, or go Jamaica, or I mean anywhere now. You know, if this flies. Trigger says, a Rothschild on Twitter congratulated Trump. Venezuela's banks are publicly owned. Yeah, you know the Rothschilds want their hand on that, you know, implementing their banking system in there. With that said, man, Black Steel, I know you've been waiting. I know you see everything everyone has said in the chat and what Webb had to say before you. What say you to all of it?
So Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, said that if I was a government leader in Havana, I would be really nervous. I do believe that Cuba might be next, right? They're looking for those elements within the Cuban government they're willing to overthrow, right? And we all understand this was never about stopping drugs. This was never about narco terrorism, right? This was always about getting access to Venezuela's oil, which Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. So this was always about that. It was never about, oh, we're going to try to protect the people from drugs and everything else like that. But we knew this. We know how the United States works. You know, they were manufacturing consent to begin the attack. That's all they were looking for. They were looking for a reason, looking for the right time, looking for the traitors within the government to be willing to help them obtain what they needed to get that. But this signals, first of all, you know, the United States is a dying empire, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous. You know, the most dangerous animal is a wounded animal, right? So we understand that the U.S. is losing some of its soft power. In fact, I would say its soft power is gone, but its hard power, the ability to project force, is not diminished, right? And this is what we call the Monroe Doctrine, way back in the 19th century, when President James Monroe said the Western Hemisphere was the United States playground. That was their sphere of influence. There was a warning to the Western powers to stay out. So back then, the United States couldn't really enforce that, but now they can. Not only that, but the Monroe Doctrine is now global. So if they feel a leader is threatened or is dangerous, they will remove him. Or if he is counter to the U.S. Interests, if he challenges U.S. imperialism, if he wants to take his country off the dollar standard and trade their resources in local money, this was a shot across the bow not only to those in Latin America, but also to Russia and China, who are challenging U.S. hegemony. And the Chinese, you know, who were actually in Venezuela, they had Chinese envoys in Venezuela at the time he was taken. So China has not responded, but this is the U.S. trying to grab a hold and maintain control of the oil resources. And this is this naked imperialism. This is no longer they have a diplomatic structure. This is we're gonna do what we're gonna do. If you don't like it, cry about it, you know. And I'm concerned only because what does this mean for a multipolar world? The U.S. is trying to grab up resources as fast as they can, be it from Latin America and Africa. We can see what happened in Nigeria on Christmas. How he bombed, went in there talking about bombing Nigerian militants, quote unquote, attacking Christians. We understand this is never about protecting any type of marginalized group. Because how many Christians are in Venezuela, right? That he probably just covered the country. And another question too, what D Webb brought up, this was an inside job. This was not the random, we're gonna snatch this man up. There were some elements within the military, within the Venezuelan government, that wanted to see Maduro gone. And that's really what we're seeing. They wanted this man out of here, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get him out of there. And they would, work with the US. Again, there's a $50 million bounty on Maduro's head. Who's gonna get that money? Somebody's gonna get that money. That's a hard thing to turn down. But when you have a traitorous class within your midst, you got to worry about that. So my concern also too, when I say this could be done in other countries, who to say it could be done again, like in Burkina Faso? They already mentioned Traore being an enemy and being a threat to U.S. interests. They just need to find that one person who's willing to sell his country out for money. And once they do, they'll go ahead and help him, set it up, get him removed. All they need to do is find that Judas, get his 30 pieces of silver, and get him up out of there. And that's something we should all be concerned about as African people. That we have, we got to deal with the traitors in our midst. This is an issue. This is something that we cannot ignore. But yes, the U.S. is very hawkish now. We have a very conservative neoliberal administration who believes in strike first. And it's telling that the Iranians said we messed up. Who's to say that they don't try to remove the Ayatollah next? And that could change the balance of power in the Middle East. Also, too, much of the oil that Cuba received comes from Venezuela. China uses Venezuelan oil. Russia uses Venezuelan oil. They are literally trying to cut off the supply lines to these other countries, to isolate them, right? To bring them under U.S. hegemony. Or that to kind of the goal is to prevent a multipolar world. And that's the move they're making. Keep people from having access to oil, working together. This is to get off the dollar, this is all an attempt, because the dollar is used as a weapon. The dollar has been weaponized to use sanctions, to punish countries. If you don't want to work with us, if you want to nationalize your industries for the benefit of your people, no, we're not letting you do that. So, this is the reality. And Trump is, I would say he's probably just the most honest about it, because every U.S. president has done this. Like you mentioned Noriega. We all know what happened to Gaddafi. But I will say this: we got to get nukes, man. We got to get nukes. If those countries don't look at North Korea, they're not trying to invade North Korea because North Korea has nukes and they're willing to use them. The nukes probably won't hit the U.S., but they can hit Japan. So Saddam Hussein didn't have nukes. When Gaddafi got rid of his chemical weapons, that's when they invade him. Garvey said that there is no justice but strength. And in this world, you got to have the resource to protect yourself. Because if you don't, then they will invade. They will be able to take your resources, kill your leaders, take your country over. His exact quote: "Do not be deceived. There is no justice but strength." In other words, in our material civilization, might is right. And if you must be heard and respected, you have to accumulate those resources that will compel unjust men to think twice before he acts. And this is what we're seeing right now. So those are just my thoughts on it. But I think every leader who opposes U.S. imperialism tonight or today is paused. I believe that Traore has a really strong team behind him. I believe that many African people support him, and they're tired of being taken advantage of. But the U.S. is looking for that one guy who's willing to sell him out. And if they do, if they can get some inroads in there, that's what they'll take. That's what the strike in Nigeria was about. It's not about protecting Christians. It's about creating military bases. It's about being able to be in a position to remove leaders who oppose U.S. imperialism.
That's good stuff there, Black Steel. Yeah, last week you and I had a discussion about handling our traders, man. And I think this kind of proves, too, that we are so far away. I mean, so far away from, attaining power of our own and self-determination, because we still haven't figured out how do you deal with the traders. How do you deal with the traders in the face of this U.S. imperialism? We have reached a point now, dying empire or not, these guys can run up in your country with the help of some folks there, because when I saw this Maduro thing, I was like, yeah, they gave him up. There's no way Maduro's supposed to be able to fly out of our country with the U.S. The people gave him up. How do we deal with this stuff?
So also, Coco, think about it. Like Venezuela has like anti-aircraft batteries that were given to them by the Russians, and these are effective but they didn't. Somebody gave the order to stand down. Somebody gave the order for these weapons to not fire. Who was it? And think also too, the woman who won the U.S. The Nobel Peace Prize this year, right? She was a Venezuelan woman who was against Maduro. Now she's being positioned into a state of leadership. She's a puppet, right? And she's going to do the U.S.'s bidding once she comes into power.
Yeah, I saw her in an interview. I'm like, well, she's gonna sell them out. D-Web, you want to add something here?
Yeah, man. Just to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, like the U.S. in itself has kind of mastered the art of subterfuge, right? Like, if you don't run a tight ship as far as you're in a circle, then you get what you got. Same day with Gaddafi, right? Like, if you don't manage who's around you, because they have literally mastered that, like they got that down packed. You got to be willing to go like scorched earth. That's the biggest thing. That's what you see with North Korea, right? North Korea let you be. I think they just shot off a nuke tonight just for the hell of it, right? Just like to let you know they ain't fucking around, right? He's letting you know he's willing to go scorched earth, right? And like you said, he has near targets that are of interest to the United States. So that's one thing that kind of saves him addition to the fact that he got nukes. But honestly, if you have a country out here and you are not willing to like bend the knee to the U.S. imperialism, bro, you got to either make friends with those who are powerful enough to kind of save your ass, or you got to develop an air force and a nuclear program, period, point blank. That's all it is to it. The one big strength of the U.S. and why you have the Monroe Doctrine is because the greatest strength for the U.S. is its location, right? It's very hard for the U.S. to actually be hit, right? That's why a lot of people in the U.S. are numb to war, don't know what the fuck it looks like unless you served or some shit, or you lived in another country. You don't know what it looks like. You don't know what it looks like to starve. You don't know what it's like to have an interruption of the logistic network. None of that shit, right? A bunch of spoiled brats in the U.S. That's why they love to see this shit. They get to watch it on TV. They get to watch bombs drop on TV. Also, the big thing going just back to the propaganda piece, the media apparatus, right? The United States essentially controls the media apparatus. That's one of the things they did was take over worldwide television. That's why people in fucking Saudi Arabia watch Friends, right? They've taken over the media apparatus. That's why they made a big fuss about TikTok, right? Because TikTok essentially was not controlled by the U.S. It was doing their own thing. They had Chinese investors and things of that nature, but TikTok was not controlled. That's really why they shut it down, for a couple of reasons. But the big reason was the U.S. did not control that media propaganda that was growing and growing and growing. Now they are actually made U.S. companies get invested in TikTok in order for them to make it visible in the United States, right? So that was the big play, and that's something people need to take just be cognizant of the media you absorb and what your kids are watching, what you were watching, because that's like probably the biggest asset. In addition to the subterfuge point I made earlier, is that the U.S. is very great at running PR campaigns, and before they run up in you. So just keep that in mind. But that's all I got.
Good stuff, Web. You said something here that made me think of this comment in the chat from Roguish Son. He says, so at what point do we acknowledge that these white people are the very same people that we read about in the history books that they tried to distance from when we were children? He goes on to say, How long do we let them cry, quote unquote, law and quote unquote health and safety while doing straight up governmental gangster work? Then he makes an interesting comment here. A lot of Slaughter says, traitors. That is exactly why I will never align or accept any FBA. But that propaganda machine, man, some of you guys are smarter than me. Some of you guys have military training. How do you deal with this thing called media? How do you neutralize the media influence that they end up getting consent through to do some of the stuff that they do? Do any one of you on the panel have an idea how you neutralize that?
I would say you can only counteract propaganda with positive propaganda. It's something. That's one thing you got to realize, is that propaganda can be countered with positive propaganda, though. Like it's difficult, but you have to be in a position where you have to counter their information with information of your own, right? And I think that's one thing we can't lose sight of. That's why I think stuff like bitter medicine is so valuable, because here we are countering the traditional narrative, And somebody mentioned FBA, which I don't like to talk about them, but it's a good point, because a lot of people are buying into this nonsense. They believe that, oh, we're really working to try to do something to help the Venezuelan people. And anybody with the sense of a goat knows that's not the truth. But yeah, we gotta be able to cut off the nonsense. But we understand as African people that they're going to be fed this garbage. You're going to be able to say, oh, they're really trying to help people in Venezuela. And it's funny because a lot of Venezuelans in Miami are celebrating this. But name one country that was improved when the U.S. invaded. We can't do it. Look at Iraq. Look at Afghanistan. Look at Guyana. There hasn't been any countries that showed a marked improvement since an invasion by the U.S. So the propaganda is really strong, but we have to counter with the propaganda of our own.
That's a great response. Yeah, it was Grenada who got invaded, and they ain't no better for it. Webb, you want to add something? Go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm just gonna, say with Black Steel, that's a great point, yo. You know what I'm saying? Like this right here. Like, one thing I say is that I'm not gonna complain about nothing and not be willing to work to change it, right? You can't sit here complain about shit. You got to be willing to, work to change things. And one of the way you change media is by starting your own media platform. So salute to you, Goku, for starting a platform and continue to build, because it's trust me, I know it's hard to push through. You know what I'm saying? When you see certain numbers and then you see a number, you're like, man, I need to get up there and I should be farther along and stuff like that. But people are listening, man. And even if if you have children out here on the panel or whatever, you know what I'm saying, instead of putting on some bullshit music, throw this show on. I throw the show on in the car with the kids in the car. You know what I'm saying? I throw on things so they can hear that. It may not be cool to them right now, but it will soak in. You know what I'm saying? Throw on the forecast show. You know what I'm saying? Throw on any of the shows here and let them soak that knowledge in. And that's how you counteract it, on top of just, limiting screen time, particularly. And I always tend to gravitate towards the youth, because those are going to be the ones that carry the torch. You know what I'm saying? When we're in wheelchairs, when we're in walkers, right? They're going to be the ones. And no movement, any movement that doesn't attract the youth is actually a dying movement, right? So I think that's the biggest thing, is to make sure your children are absorbing, good media, even if they don't necessarily appreciate it right now. We know from experience, us being older cats, that sometimes they appreciate it later on in life. So that's all I want to add to that.
Yeah, that's good advice at the end there. In the chat, Rogus' son said he's going to come up. He's here now, but let me just finish reading a couple of these comments. Our sister Cheryl is out in the chat. She says, I just cut off the TV. She says, I'm a TV kid, unfortunately, but husband told me sometimes you just got to cut it off. Yeah, so that's the options, really. Cut it off, tune out, or like the panelist said, make your own stuff, Cheryl says, doesn't completely solve the problem, but not watching the idiot box every day definitely helps. A lot of solace said youth is everything. Kofi the Black Critic is also out in the chat saying, Happy New Year, family. Happy New Year to you too, brother. With that said, let's welcome in Roguish Son. Roguish Son, how are you?
Peace, I'm chilling. How y'all doing?
Good. What are your thoughts on this topic, son?
I mean, it's I don't know. Like I said, Professor Jean, he actually like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he predicted this. And I think what it does, it shows that there has been a reversion. Because this whole thing as far as being American, I don't know what this means to everybody who's an American now. You know what I'm saying? Because I see a whole lot of Americans actually supporting this. And it's like, okay, well, what becomes the moral standard then? You know what I'm saying? Because, we're stopping drugs. Oh, we're stopping drugs from coming in here. You motherfuckers love drugs. We talking about white people. Y'all love drugs. Y'all love everything about drugs. Y'all try every single drug there is. You the ones that's creating it, trying to set laws and all that. Y'all are the drug folks. But then now they're trying to curb it, and the fact that got play. Like you know what I'm saying? It's you don't hear any other nation complaining about Venezuela like that, right? But as soon as it's convenient for the U.S., this occurs. I want to know, what did this mean to everybody else who is now participating as a so-called we American? What does this mean to be an American? To be a part of some fuck shit like that?
Rogerson, that's a great question. That's a great follow-up question. And thanks for being here and coming up on the panel, by the way. And don't bother to feel nervous. We all friends and family here. So you can just fit in. But that's a good question. So as you know, I like Black Steel. I don't like the FBA conversations too much. But there is that question though. What does that say for Black folks who identify as American, because that's their nationality, but also kind of being in that position of you kind of have to support what America is doing. Oftentimes, a lot of other Black folks too, by the way.
It's been by default. The thing is, it's largely been by default. Ever since second grade, I've said, fuck America is my man, is deity. When I found out that it put crack in my neighborhood, turning my shit from Earth, Wind, and Fire to First 48. You know what I'm saying? So we're talking second grade. I ain't never let up off of that. I ain't never let up off of fuck the police. None of that. There's a lot of Black people that so-called grow out of that, and then you see them growing into their capitulating earlier generations. Right? I've never been about that. In 1984, I saw America had a problem with Black people. So I had a problem with America. I've judged all of this only just from being Black. That's my only lens. And when it comes, so I can view this with a shame America shit. Because I ain't never, even though, being part of them ranks and all that, I don't know, just to get a good understanding of how the world really is. And you realize that, okay, it's all about the value standard. These Peckerwoods can say whatever they want to initiate a war with another people, and it won't get declared that unless they declare it so. So now you got to ask yourself, what's the measurement of safety? What's the measurement of health? What's the measurement of because this is supposed to be universal, right? Hey, there's nothing wrong with war, but if you utilize it as a business, then that's different. You know what I'm saying? You would want to hold such a country to a much more stern of an accountability of getting into war. But nah, you know what I'm saying? It's so I think what it is, it's like somebody said earlier, I think Brother Man said earlier with Trump just, he's just being honest. And that's what it's been. He just being honest, and he's being honest about these people as a culture. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing because America's not going to fall apart if it falls to number 5 in the world, right? It's not going to fall apart. It's not. The United States, the convenience framework, how y'all have it set up to be for these greed feeders to feed their consumers sort as they wish, there's nothing going to fall with that. It's just going to have to change. But if that changes, then they change the way that they eat. But when it comes to the dough, that's the whole issue. The status quo is shaking to these peckerwoods and these greed feeding motherfuckers who are empty but got all the power, right? But they're empty. To them, they don't want that status quo to shift. It don't matter if their quality doesn't slip, you know what I'm saying, 60% or something like that. They don't want it to slip 5%.
Does Black Steel, or do you have what thoughts you have about the Black Americans positioning in this in these situations?
Well, I would say this. There's 340 million people in the U.S. And I think most Americans, I mean, you think about Trump ran on a promise of, we're not going to have any more new wars. We're going to America first, all the other stuff. So a lot of people are very unhappy with this turn of events. The problem is that the American people don't really have any influence on their government. This is something that is a realization. We don't have any influence on this government. Ever since, I mean, the thing is, who can, we can say, oh, we shouldn't do this is wrong for our government. But when you have our government in the pocket of the corporations and the military, and for example, if you were to poll U.S. citizens, right, most people want some form of universal health care, Medicare for all, but the insurance companies don't. So we don't get it. And that's just a simple reality. We don't have the say so in the government. So most Americans probably don't want something like this to happen. We probably want health care. We want lower taxes. We want to be able to feed the youth. And then now we can't. But we got money to bomb Venezuela. But then you have a military that's going to follow orders no matter what. There was a Republican who sat up here and said, you have a duty to disobey illegal orders. What happened in Venezuela is illegal as hell. You sit up here, you kidnap a foreign head of state with no type of warrant and no type of that's a major violation of international law. They don't care. If you can give these kids a Hellcat and free college, they'll kill whoever you want to kill. Whoever you want to kill. And that's a startling indictment of the American people. Most people don't support this, but they feel powerless. And that's really the problem, is that, and Black Americans even more so, because we don't have an investment. When Black people most join the military, they're trying to get college or GI Bill or whatever benefits they can get. They're not all Yankee Doodle Dandy, they're just trying to survive. And that is a very direct consequence of the United States, is that they keep their people impoverished, so that when you feel you have to join the military and you're willing to do whatever it takes to improve your standard of life, and you don't really care if you got to kill some little Venezuelan kid overseas.
But if the people don't want to acknowledge that it's all about the value center, like you said, being in them ranks of the kilitary, Rich, because it ain't nothing to do up in that motherfucker until a war kick off. Real talk. I mean, they could be doing things here, but we don't. It's a war machine. It's not for defense. It's not for military. It's just a war machine. A military is supposed to be for defense. A war machine, you basically a state-appointed mercenary in a degree. So but the whole thing is, once you get there and you realize, oh, okay, this is what y'all about. This has nothing to do with defense. This is all about keeping on that same imperial intention that y'all had thousands of years ago or whatever. It's just a modern style of doing it. Now the onus is on the people, not just the power show, because it's easy to say, yo, bad devil, bad devil, bad devil, when mostly they work through proxy. They get all of that assistance, all of that acquiescence, all of that capitulation, right? So it's really mainly on, if you believe in the American dream, this is what you're going to get. This is what the United States want. They want you to believe in the American dream. And most Americans, however you see yourself, no matter what color, demographic, or whatever, if you hear in this hole, yeah, you believe in the American dream and all the bullshit that come with it. But people like to sift whenever it starts to get uncomfortable, as opposed to rejecting what you're supposed to outright reject. That's demonic as fuck from the jump.
Yeah, like when you get to they don't hide it though. You know what I'm saying? Like anybody who's ever had to do what they had to do as far as joining that death machine known as the military, they tell you the first day, you know what I'm saying? You know, our job is to kill people and take the shit. Like literally. They say that. There's no, that's verbatim. That's a direct quote I'm telling you. So in regards to your original question about Black Americans just trying to get by, bro. We have no power structure here. Most people are just trying to go to their job, go home, raise a decent family, you know what I'm saying, buy food. There's very little thought given into international. If you know what I mean, I just was back home in Chicago not too long ago. There was no talks. Like the people on this panel, I don't think people realize how rare it is. The people on this panel, the people that's in the chat, the people that frequent your show and stuff like that. That is a rare bunch, bro. That is a rare bunch of people, bro. Most people have their head in the sand. That includes Black Americans and all Americans, bro. You know, I don't even mention FBA because the FBA really only exists on the internet. It's a few people out there who have taken it to the real life or whatever, but for the most part, FBA don't exist. I don't hear these conversations in the barbershop. Nobody's running around with the FBA flag saying fuck Africans and none of that shit. It doesn't exist, right? I seen just as much red, black, and green on last Juneteenth than I seen anything else, right? But you know, when you don't have a power structure on yourself, when you don't have no kind of unity amongst yourself, when you don't have any kind of economic power, because that's what at the end of the day, that what matters, right? It was a thing.
Wasn't that the intention though? Wasn't all of that the analysis of the intention of even putting the accuracy together? 8-0s. I put them together. I say 8-0s FBA.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever you want to call them cats. I don't see no book bag drive, and that's the thing too. There's no grassroots works, right? You don't see any you know, pass outs for back to school. There's no fucking FBA turkey give outs around fucking Thanksgiving. There's no fucking building. There's no fucking rec center in your neighborhood that's known as the FBA.
But wait a minute, but you're speaking on it like it's a group as opposed to a perspective of lineage.
At the end of the day, aren't those two kind of intertwined? If you hold a certain ideal, right? So we can separate propaganda from actual real work, right?
Okay.
I get where you're going with it, and that is the point. I agree with you. The point of FBA is I don't even think half the people on the internet are even fucking Black. If you look at most of the accounts that spew the most vile shit.
It's a bunch of bullshit now because the moment that the shit got stale, which is unfortunate, and that was through outside error, right? Because you got to understand something. You said it yourself last. You say Juneteenth, 4th of July. You know, Juneteenth. You saw a lot of RBG flags and everything.
Right.
Well, that's not a Black thing. That's a Black conscious community thing. The larger part of Black people were not rocking with the Black conscious community. They weren't rocking with Pan-Africanism, right? They weren't even rocking with well, we all this Black thing. It was just more along the line of, well, no, I'm an American. When 8-0s came and they wanted to make them specifics, what they noted was that, nah, y'all making this political. This ain't got nothing to do with political. Our identity has nothing to do with politics. It's more along the line of where we see ourselves as a culture. So foundational Black Americans, more specific, that drew in more of the average crowd, the average Black person who didn't look into their lineage. They didn't look into any aspect of the conscious community. So that didn't take them through any lanes toward Pan-Africanism or an understanding of a potential diaspora and connection, right? All they knew was that, oh, wow, I'm paying this type of attention to my Black reality in this lens. And then you had those from the outside speak up out of pocket at the average Black person who doesn't pay any attention to any of this whatsoever. And FBA was their start. We've already had 70 years of conscious community grassroots groups that, you know what I'm saying, largely get, you know what I'm saying, I guess dismayed or avoided by Black Americans because they think that it's anti-American, or they think that they trying to send you over to somewhere in Africa. Me and my ex-wife did this shit, 15 years plus, whatever. Been there, know it. So the thing is, when it comes to that, you have those who don't take a look at their, and I'll end with this. They've never taken a look at their lineage. Most of the time, Black people just think I'm whatever American that these Peckerwoods say that I am, as opposed to understanding that they have full agency to create an identity, to identify, based off of our own analysis. That got interrupted by folks who was interacting with us as if we were merely the defaulted classification and not identifying ourselves as a group, as you know what I'm saying, or as a people. That's why people say, oh, we all black. When the police pull us over, hey, that has no bearing on how we identify ourselves. But if that's yours, then that means that you're valuing us through the systematic framework. And what FBA is supposed to be is an adjustment in that. I mean, but it turned into what it turned into, unfortunately.
But you know that's also a problem that you gotta look within too, right? A lot of time, a lot what happened, man. I think particularly with the Pan-African movement, a lot of people got comfortable, man. A lot of people started going to academics and start being in these rooms and almost like the church, right? If you're not behind these doors talking, then we're not listening to you. They're not in the schools. They wasn't going to to the neighborhoods and putting in that work anymore, like you seen the early movements did. You know what I'm saying? Back to the Panthers of the day, right? You didn't see that anymore. I didn't see that growing up, right? You didn't see that. So it was kind of easy for a group like a FBA to try to get their little niche in because they there's nothing there for the people, right? So you have to go the fuck outside, bro. You have to track. That goes back to my original point of talk to the youth, yo. We can't just have these conversations with ourselves, man. We got to go outside and talk to the fucking kid because they're thirsty for knowledge, man. They have nothing to really fucking believe in, bro.
But wait a minute. I think that's a projection because the issue right now is that the youth are tied into the value standards that are actually the antithesis of what they need to be.
But how they get tied into it though? That's the chicken and the egg, right?
I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming them. Yeah. I'm saying when you bring it to them, just something as light as sagging, right? Something as light as sagging. I remember when people first started sagging, and they really wasn't sagging. It's just that they were accustomed to not having a belt. It was around 1985, 86 or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. And cats who had got locked up in the mid 70s to the late 70s was getting out mid 80s, late 80s. All right. And you get out, you institutionalize or whatever, or you condition, under that paradigm. And you got accustomed to not wearing the belt. All of us, we would never show our draws. In the 80s, you ain't gonna show your draws. It's like, hey, that's private, right?
Right.
Well, you tell them, okay, look, start from there, and you try to give them, the rundown of that. Even also prior to that, with these pilgrims lynching us, and chopping off manhood and sagging the pants and shit. They don't want to hear that. They're like, look, it don't mean that no more. So in all practicality, it makes sense for them to walk around with their pants around their ass, with a belt on, holding it up with one hand as if they don't have a belt, slew walking all the day long. You try to get some logic into that mind. I think all this shows that their value standard, unfortunately, it seems like it's actually done. You don't have access to the youth like that anymore. You don't have access to their attention span like that. Not unless you're talking about make some money or something. Get money around, nigga, get money. Right. I mean, what age are we talking about here? What age are we talking about?
Oh, you see 50-year-olds, bro. I got uncles right now who pants, you know what I mean? They came before the 80s. They was youth, but that goes back to also you kind of have to have that strong power structure where if you create leaders, bro, people follow that. They follow that structure, right? I hate to say this, but a lot of people will just follow. A lot of people on that lemming shit, bro. They're gonna follow what the structure is, that strong male. That's why when a lot of movements, the leader of a movement die, the whole movement go away. You know what I'm saying? So that goes back to that. If you have a whole culture of leaders, bro, it don't matter if you have the majority maybe on some other shit following the status quo or whatever, because they're gonna follow this leader, right? They're gonna follow that, and we're not creating those leaders no more, dog. When was the last time we had a Malcolm X? When was the last time? And that's not necessarily our fault, but it's been a structure around that. But we need to get back to that, bro. We got to create leaders at the end, and it starts in your house. It starts around your nephews and your nieces and shit. You know what I'm saying? That's how you got to start.
Of course. So when you talk to your nephews and nieces, how much success do you get with them? Like depending on what their age.
It depends, bro. I'm not,
because I don't get a lot of success. I don't. I talk to my nephew and nieces all the time, and have been talking to them since when they were 5 all the way up until 22, and and now they're starting to make their own family.
But I didn't listen, bro. That's the thing. Did you really did you had to fuck up too, right? The thing is, you plant the seed, bro. The seed may not ferment immediately, bro. It may not have fermented. They may be 18, 19, 20 fucking up, right? It may click at 33. It might click in the 30s like it did for Malcolm, right? Did Malcolm walk around at fucking 15? He was what, hustling? You know what I'm saying?
Okay, yeah, but
That's all I'm saying.
But the social phenomenon that they have to encounter now that could potentially influence them to make, you know, decisions that are, you know, I guess unhealthy in their identity of being black and connection to being black, which is two things that I think we've never defined. I've been saying this shit for decades. That's why I don't say the word. I don't really like saying coon. You know what I mean? Because, you know, we call somebody a coon or something, but it's like, what is the standard that we set at what it means to be beholden to us? What does it mean to be black, and what does it mean to belong to being black? Which is the two most important things about being black in the United States. The thing is we don't give them anything to adhere to because we think that is, for some reason, a lot of black people's blackness is merely non-whiteness. It's not really black, you know what I'm saying? Even in the subconscious, you know what I'm saying? It's weird the way it works like that, because I think that's also why you got these younger generations giving full out pass, N-word pass to the younger generations of these other folk. Like word, like I'm in Dallas right now, and these Mexicans that got to get put in pocket here, one, because the black people here don't ride like that. You know, they let anybody say what the fuck they want to say, whatever. And I'm from Oklahoma. Fuck what you heard, bro. Ain't no Peckerwood getting ready to motherfucker. What? I ain't no Mexican. What?
Though, you like even New York, bro. If you ever go to New York, right? And I know Goku know about this. It's all types of people saying the fucking dropping N-bombs, bro. They live in a different creed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's been ingrained that the Puerto Rican, light-skinned, fair-skinned, blue-eyed cats can say it up there as opposed to South, which is different, right? It's just that
to who though? Who agreed to that as a culture?
I would say this, and I sorry to interrupt you guys. I was heating up my chicken wings. Forgive me.
For sure.
Had to put them in the air fryer, man. It tastes better in the air fryer than the microwave.
Sure.
Anyway, but when I work, you know, as I work with the young people, right? They have a desire for knowledge, right? They really do. But I would say this, that our families have become so fractured. I said this on my before on the podcast. I didn't learn any Black history in school. I learned it from my mother. You know, my mom, she bought me books, she taught me, and I valued and I appreciated that. I didn't learn that in school. So when as I work in the schools, I work with my students, right? If once you build a relationship, feel comfortable with you, and they come and talk to you, they're not receiving anything at home, right? They are receiving the propaganda and everything else at home. Now, every now and then, you know, you have a young student come in to me. Oh, I heard about this. Can we talk about this? Can we talk about this? And even though it's not on the curriculum, I'll make a little time to talk about that particular issue as it pertains to them, right? I work in a Title I school. We don't have the type of oversight that you would have in like a school that Title I just means a kid's school. A lot of students receive free lunch, which means that, you know, their income is pretty low. So we tend to have a little bit more leeway. We don't have the parents hovering over us the way you would. But I think a lot of they're hungry, but they don't know where to get fed at. And I think because we understand how our movements have been attacked. We mentioned the Panthers earlier. The Panthers were considered to be a major threat to where you had the government literally attacking and murdering and killing our revolutionaries or imprisoning them. We still got Panthers in prison to this day. We just lost H. Rap Brown, you know, may he rest in peace. He died in prison. So we really want to have organized and work with them. I said we do got to reach the youth, but I don't want to underestimate them, because they got this thing now because they call them YNs, right? Young niggas. And to your point, I hear not only the Black kids saying it, but you're the white kids saying it.
Yeah.
And you're the Hispanic kids saying it.
Yeah.
And because that's a direct result of the media, of the music.
It's not just the media or the music. What it is, it's the essence of us being commodified. The thing is, I've always said we don't make music, we put our life to wax. And for everybody else, that's the reason why they feel it the way that they feel it. Now, even though that they feel it on the Earth, Wind, and Fire side of the game, and it's undeniable, you know what I'm saying? You got that funky on the one, it is what it is. The thing is, let's say that it's a little bit more rich than what everyone else is accustomed to, even amongst their own music. Okay, but that don't mean that you consume of it as if the people don't have any of this essence to maintain in an integrity into themselves, right? I mean, it's the thing is we've become a theme. We've become is so the whole point of this is the immaterial value of us. We understand what we want the material to be, what we want to look like, what we prefer to be in the United States and all that, but the immaterial aspect of our person, that's what we ain't been tended to, and that's what we've been needing to protect and fortify ourselves with against the United States. But we think that we can go along with this old hoe ass hating nigga nation and instill something within it that's gonna be good for ours, as if it's not always trying, as if it's not always trying to eat us, as if it doesn't prey on us 24/7. Still, 40 years later, I'm 46, and I was paying attention to this shit when I was 6. 40 years later, ain't nothing changed. Other than us further commodified, just like everything else further commodified. And you know that that's the case. Again, when now you got all these non-black people think they got access to the N-word like crazy like that. Basically, they're saying, hey, fuck you, nigger. I can say nigger. And we got to accept that from everyone. To me, you said fracture. You start off with fracture. And yo, thank you for serving the future. You know what I'm saying? All educators, thank you for serving the future. Respect. Is that fraction. But the thing that has us fraction more than anything was that one, we never truly took a self-ownership of ourselves. We never did that. We never took a self-ownership. We never really declared ourselves as being more precious than anything that America or these white people could put out there, anything. And not just for the sake of the spirit of being black. No, we're talking for the integrity of what we build. I'm from North Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? And there's a strong ethic there of striving, motivation. You know what I'm saying? We can do it. Never say I can't. Always say I'll try. There's always a way. I get it. But at what point do you acknowledge you have an adversarial sort in power that operate mafially or like fucking gangsters or whatever, no matter how convenient that they can make the I guess the essentials of life, right, within this society? At what point do you not acknowledge that you have this particular group against you? At what point do you is it go along to get along with such a group? And I'll end with this: for us not to declare that to do so isn't some remnants of that past pre-emancipation conditioning. It's like we don't want to we never want to call white people the enemy. We never want to call the United States the enemy. We never want to call America the enemy. We never want to say that they have an enemious nature about them. We never want to say that they're adversary. We never want to say that, right? There's always a way. All you got to do is work around it, and you don't have any agency of your own existence by that. You don't unless you set your own reality parameters. You don't even exist. You're only existing as those who set the earlier parameters are permitting you to exist. And this is what we're running into. We're running into the end of all this. We're running into something that, I mean, I understand y'all want solution. We're running into the end of something that was essential. So think about this. It's like bone on bone with your knees. When that meniscus tissue is gone, the only way that you can get that function back, because it can't come back, through the meniscus, that's gone. You got to have an artificial means. We can't do artificial means with this. It was supposed to maintain a certain integrity from the jump. No matter what the white people said, no matter how dangerous they was, no matter how savage, evil, demonic, the United States, no matter KKK, no matter whatever, especially if you're going to say that you believe in an all-powerful deity, especially if that. So in ways, us going along with this shit is what's been fucking us up the entirety of the time.
Ruggish, I really do enjoy listening to your takes here. I'll be real. The conversation got really good here, but I don't know if you know this. We tend to do about 5 topics during the showtime from 8 to 11 p.m. So, we don't get to really, do too much back and forth talking, but you'll see how it goes. You'll see how it goes. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to hold that energy right there. And let me introduce topic number 2.
That's right.
Shoot the Breeze. Where is it? Shoot the Breeze topic number 2 says, this is what transformative African leadership looks like in the 21st century. By the way, shout out to Sister Raw, Brother Bakari, Provide Triggers for Evolution, Marcus Garvey is the way. Thank you all for joining us in the chat tonight. Make sure you guys can see this. Okay. So again, Shoot the Breeze topic number 2. This is what transformative African leadership looks like in the 21st century. We'll watch the clip and then we will discuss.
He's the president of Botswana. Botswana, you know what Botswana is? Here it is. Lovely country, beautiful people. Botswana is one of the biggest producers of diamond. Now, this president wants to change things. Let's listen to what he has to say.
We are here today as Namibia and Botswana. We've been here before, many times in fact. And I'd like to call upon all of us to take a stand in relation to 2 critical questions that philosophers have dealt with, wrestled with over time and climbed over the years.
You have to be very strong to fix Africa. You have to be very strong.
The first, they say, is the problem of context and contextuality. What is our relationship with the present circumstances in which we find ourselves? The habitual settings of our actions. How do we relate with them? We may relate with them from a position of obeisance, of worship, of idolatry, where we fetishize and worship the institutions, the practices, and the habits that we've inherited. And we operate in a business as usual manner. Or we can engage with these circumstances and seek to transform them.
Changing Africans is not easy. You have to sacrifice yourself to change Africans. It's a lot of work.
And when we seek to transform them, we must then engage in context-smashing approaches and possibilities. Do we embrace, maintain, or do we smash the context, transform, reform, shape it anew? That's the first question, the question of context and contextuality. There's a second question. Philosophers call it the solidaristic question of solidarity. How do we relate with each other?
Being a president is not just being in the office looking good and driving a nice car or being driven. Being a president is being in the field and making things happen. And this is what we're seeing.
And when we consider this, we must appreciate a reality. We can't escape it. We can't run away from it. We need each other. We need each other desperately. We must acknowledge this. Botswana needs Namibia desperately. Namibia needs Botswana desperately. Fact. It's axiomatic. It goes without saying. But there's another corollary reality, and it is this. Despite the fact that we need each other so desperately, we also pose immense dangers to each other. And so in terms of this contradiction, we are pretty much like the proverbial unhappy couple. We can't live together, yet we can't live apart. We must make it work, whether we like it or we don't. And so what do? Takes me to my next point, really. I'm going to be brief with my hurried thoughts. I've said to you, all that needed to be spoken today has already been stated eloquently. I will not ream the magic out of it.
Africa needs more people like this. Africa needs more people like this.
There are two broad types of people, Bruce Lee tells us. In a book, or two books actually, that I stumbled upon. One is called The Tao of Bruce Lee. The other, Letters of the Dragon, pages 115 to 117. Bruce Lee writes a poem there. I don't think you know him to be a poet, but he was more than a poet. He was actually a philosopher, in addition to the other things that he did, for which he is renowned. He asks a profound question, says, having distinguished two broad types, he says there are doers and doubters. He says there are doers and doubters. And he says, which are you? And I pose that question to you, to all of us. Which are we? Are we doers or are we doubters? And he says the doubters said men can't fly. The doers said, maybe, but we'll try. And finally soared into the morning glow while the doubters watched from down below. Which are we? Are we doers or are we doubters? When I spoke with the president privately, we agreed, both of us, that our ascendance to the leadership of our two countries has ignited so much hope amongst our people. They look forward, they yearn for change. They have full faith and confidence in our ability to deliver the change. But that is also very dangerous because they are impatient. The people are hungry out there. The people are unclad. They are unhoused. They are unfed. They want to eat. They want to work. They want to eke out a meaningful living within the borders of their countries. The expectations that lie on our shoulders are enormous. And if we sit twiddling our thumbs, consuming ourselves in doubt and misapprehension, we will disappoint those multitudes that have invested so much hope in all of us. We need to respond to their cries, to their pleas, to their conjurations, and we need to respond immediately, decisively, boldly. That's what we are called upon to do, otherwise we will not be fit. So we are challenged every day, every step of advance, to prove our worth and mettle. Are we worthy of the responsibility that has been bestowed on each and every one of us? And so we are called upon now, in a practical manner, to make choices. How do we deploy the limited resources at our disposal? And these resources include yourselves, the personnel, the natural resources, the financial opportunities. How do we mobilize, marshal these in the service of the people that have given us the responsibility to lead them? That's the first. The second is, and this is a requirement of strategy. They'll teach you this when they teach you strategy. Choice. What choices do you make? Choose to be a doubter. Choose to be a doer. A lot turns on the choices that we make or we fail to make. Errors both of commission and of omission. We need to be alive to these realities if we are to be of any impact at all. The second is empathy. In strategy, you need to have empathy. You need to consider the feelings and the interests of the others. In this case, Botswana must consider the feelings, the sentiments, and the interests of Namibia, and Namibia must do the same. It speaks to what I will call plausible complementarity between these two nations. Plausible complementarity. Botswana must complement Namibia, Namibia must complement Botswana. Not just in talk, in word, but in action, in deed. So all the sermons that you preach must now be translated into reality. They must be enacted in the lives of real people, those on the downside of your societies, those in the dumps catching hell. Your choices, your actions must translate into something meaningful for them to transform their lives. Empathy. The third is alliance, solidarity. These opportunities for cooperation, collaboration. Some of them new, some of them untried and untested. And when any person is confronted with untried and untested opportunities for collaboration, they recoil and they default into what they know and what they have done. But what we know and what we've done, the bulk of it hasn't worked or worked as well as we thought it would. So we are forced to reflect even on those routinized and collectivized, stylized forms of action and thought patterns, to review them, cast aside some of them that will work for both countries, for other countries in the region, for the continent, and for the world. So we need to strengthen our alliance. What does this entail? We must avoid unnecessary competition. Botswana must not seek to outcompete Namibia. Namibia must not seek to outcompete Botswana. There must be objective, plausible complementarity between these two neighbor states. What are we competing on? Namibia is a beef-producing country. Botswana is a beef-producing country. There's no need for any competition between these two countries. Namibia has a population of about 3 million, Botswana 2.5. What are we competing on? There is need for collaboration, for coming together, for coalescing around common goals, visions, and outcomes. And so when Botswana fails to meet its quota to the EU because its national herd has drastically diminished, Namibia must step in and fill the gap. That's plausible complementarity. When Namibia cries out to Botswana and says, your policies in relation to cement have adversely affected my people, Botswana must pause, reflect, its empathy, and say, how do I accommodate the interests of Namibia in order for Namibia to also accommodate my own interest? That's the plausible complementarity I'm talking about. The fourth element, cause and effect. These actions that we undertake, what determinate outcomes do they bring? Not what we, in our suppositions and presuppositions, think What does reality bear out? Human causality. That's what we need to look at this level as leaders of an emerging continent that is the future of the world. Otherwise, we are too weak to be at the helm, at the front. We've got to justify our being as that emerging continent, the leaders of the now frontier. So we must know the best that is known and think the best that is thought in the world. We must become thought leaders on the African continent. We're not begging to be recognized. We claim our place. We say, you are forced to look at us. You are forced to listen to us. We're not begging. We're not negotiating. We are staking our claim to the leadership of the world as Africans. And the last issue for me is time. We're not going to be talking for an inordinate amount of time. All these decisions, these discussions must be operationalized. They must be time-bound. We must put down timelines, strict timelines, and stick to those timelines. Because we have a revolution to effect on the African continent, in our countries. And a revolution is not endless. It's not amorphous. It's not shapeless. And a revolution is sometimes convulsive. It causes ruptures, it causes uncertainty, it causes discomfort. It's a revolution, that's what it is. And it is not indeterminate. It has to achieve outcomes within a period of time. And so, many of these programs that we are looking at here, these memoranda that we will sign, how much time do we have before we see tangible results sounding in jobs, in improved livelihoods, in improved infrastructure, in enhanced opportunities for growth and collaboration? How much time are we ascribing to them? These are the elements, in my humble view, that will enable us to provide formidable answers to the problem of context and contextuality, question the challenge of solidarity, and that will determine whether we are doubters or doers. I am a doer. I am a doer unapologetically. And I must be honest, sometimes you people, sometimes I get frustrated by you, public officers, with your rigidities, your routinized sluggishness, your reticence, your inability to respond instantly, decisively, boldly, objectively to pressing and trenchant problems. Because you recoil and you fall back on what has happened before, regardless of the fact that it has not worked. So sometimes I get frustrated by yourselves. You are too formal. That's why you refer to yourselves as excellencies and all these other titles. I'm just a boy. And I'm a boy to everybody. No formalities, because I want us to focus on the real issues.
This president is brand new. You can clearly see he's trying to make a very strong impact. He doesn't want to leave office and say, oh, we should have done this, we could have done this, we would have done this. He wants to be impactful. This is clear. He wants the army to be strong. He wants his people protected.
Appreciating that we are all subject to human frailties, foibles, and fallibilities. We know that. We're human. We're not deities. And so when we engage, we must engage alive to all these simple realities. Botswana and Namibia, the airline in Namibia has collapsed, the Namibian airline. Air Botswana is on the verge of collapse. Botswana has 2.5 million people, Namibia about 3 million. What can these two countries do in the area of airline transportation? What can they do? The both of them, not in competition, objective, plausible complementarity. What can they do? It's a question I throw to you, because I have full faith and confidence that you will provide the answer. When are we starting work on the Trans-Kalahari rail line and the pipelines, the oil pipelines that we must build, opening up frontiers of trade amongst ourselves and into the rest of the continent, under the aegis of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement? When are we translating these sermons into lived reality for our people?
Yeah, usually we only allow about a 12-minute or so video maximum, but I thought that speech, I thought it was such a good example of Pan-Africanism in that speech that I think it's something that we really needed to hear. And I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really sit around studying the regions of Botswana and Namibia that much. But this guy in his speech made me want to, and I will, look into those countries a little bit more. And I think that's powerful. I think that's important, that we be good enough examples when we're given the ears of the people, that once you finish talking, people say, you know what? I want to see more from this guy. I want to hear more. I want to see what happens in this situation. So I do appreciate the person who posted this. Rugged son, I'll call on you when I'm,
Gotcha.
when the time is appropriate, all right? But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say. But anyway, Rugged son, go ahead.
My apologies. When it comes to the main fissures between any other nations within the continent, right? So Africa. So he's saying to identify Africa as Africans, right? The thing is, what is it religion that's keeping Botswana and Namibia to, at odds with one another, or what? In the past?
That's a good question. That's kind of what I was addressing. I haven't really studied this region too tough, but in the chat, Sister Cheryl says that over 90% of Namibia is Christian, and
Okay.
I'm guessing that Botswana might be of an opposite mix. I'm just guessing. All right.
I got you.
Yeah, but continue.
Yeah. So it makes me wonder, like, because I don't know. I see Africa as being preyed upon by the rest of the world, as far as I'm concerned. And it's like, all right, it's a lot of the world that's, trying to do what they want with it. It makes me ask the question, then, how is it that there aren't, even though you got, like, tribal differences, religious differences, and whatever, how is it that the greater threat never presents itself to the larger part of the nations of the continent? You know what I'm saying? Like how is it that, is it the religion that ties it in? Because I'm noticing that with, like, here in the United States, it's the religion that got Black people slavishly beholden to this motherfucker. It's the religion that got them slavishly beholden to white folks. And the demonic standards that this place hold. It's largely religion. And I just assumed that it was much more diverse upon the supercontinent of Africa.
Yeah, apparently some people in the chat are saying it probably a nationalistic versus tribal view. That was Lord of Slaughter.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't have enough info. Maybe one of the other panelists do. So I'm gonna throw it to Black Steel. Black Steel would say.
You know, a lot of times the colonial powers work really hard to, when they would form their, colonial holdings, they made sure to put rival ethnic groups in there so that way they could be fighting each other.
Yeah.
And they would use that divide and conquer as a way to, while they're fighting each other, to loot their resources. Also, too, another thing is that he mentioned these countries are very small populations. Namibia is mostly desert. Botswana lost a lot of its population, a lot of their young people during the AIDS epidemic too. So I know that these countries have a very small population. I think that what they're trying to do, he mentioned something about their airline industry has collapsed. Botswana has a very lucrative diamond industry. How unfortunately that diamond industry is in control of the Western powers. I think particularly like Great Britain and so on and so forth. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to foster greater cooperation between the two groups, which is a really good thing. I think a lot of African leaders are starting to see that the writing on the wall, and they see that much of their resources are in demand by the world, and they want to be able to get to use solidarity, work with each other, and cooperate. I think that's one problem, is that these African nations have for so long followed the borders that were drawn upon them by Europeans. When Europeans drew the borders in the Berlin Conference in 1885, they did it as a way to maximize their theft. But once the African nations became independent, they still kept these borders. So I think that as Namibia and Botswana are going closer together, they're trying to eliminate those national borders. Were they joining the Sahel states? Was that part of what the chat was? I don't know if anybody got that. But it sounds like they might be trying to come together instead of trying to be just form one nation. And if that's the case,
if they're both mainly beef producing nations, where do they ship their beef to?
Probably Europe or Saudi Arabia.
They can't have cows in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, they don't eat pork. They're Muslims. Saudi Arabia is mostly desert, though. That's the thing. They're mostly desert, so they own a lot of farmland in Ethiopia too. A lot of farmland is owned by Saudi Arabia, Ethiopia. So you have another African nation that's just taking advantage of the discord is found in the motherland. But I think it's a good thing, though. I think it's a good thing that they're working together. I hope that they continue to build relationships with one another. So that's just my thoughts on it.
I like the thought of a unified Africa is dope. I ain't even a Pan-Africanist no more, but in the sense of that, I'm saying I used to be whatever, but the thought of a unified Africa, are you kidding me? Oh God. Yeah, that's right. and Trayor said it all. Yo, long live Ibrahim Trayor, for real. He said it all. Well, a shout out to Malema as well. Can't forget Malema.
Appreciate that. VWeb, what say you?
I'll keep it brief. I don't believe shit that come out of politicians' mouths, so I don't want to poo-poo on the fucking moment and shit. You know what I'm saying? But the first thing I do when I hear politicians, particularly from Africa, talk, is I look and I see where they were educated. This cat went to Harvard Law School. You know what I'm saying? He's a Harvard-trained dude. So he's been trained to speak well. He's been trained to say what he needs to say. Will action speak? We'll see, right? I'm so like numb to speeches at this point to keep it real with you. So, if he's about that action, I do know Botswana and Namibia, two of the most developed nations already, as far as African, sub-Saharan Africa and stuff like that, and then we got to keep in mind a lot of nations in Africa, babies, on the world stage. I think Botswana was in the 60s. They got their freedom, independence. Namibia, I think within the past 30 years or some shit. I mean, y'all can quote me on that. I don't know for sure. But at the end of the day, in comparison to like this 250 year monstrosity known as America, you know what I'm saying, or any of these China or anything like that. So, it takes a while to get things in order. You will have things like dispute. I think they had a border dispute, I think, was the main thing between Botswana and Namibia, a dispute about some on the border or something like that. But I don't think it's been something that's been a conflict or bloody type of conflict, right? And just like Black Steel said, just hearing about the populations, the 2.5 million and 3 million, I think New York has 8 million people, something like that. So not only are these baby nations, right, as far as the age, they are also tiny. So if they can get it together and advance and keep things going, be one of the more and continue to be one of the more developed nations, and maybe that spread out to the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, that's dope. But we will see. Like I said, when I see what people educate, I've learned a long time ago to just watch and see what people are educated, and that's the first thing I do. When I hear people talk, I go and see what school you went to, and then I haven't seen too many revolutionary thinkers come out of Harvard. It's just me, but I hope good things come to be on an optimistic level. You know what I'm saying? But that's it.
No, I agree with you too. You do have to look at where especially when it comes to Black leadership, African leadership, you do have to look them up. And now, unless they change the gameplay, you don't usually get these kinds of guys talking in quite that way. If I'm not mistaken with my history, you don't really get them like that too much. But like you said, we'll wait and we'll see. In the chat, Trigger Happy says, yeah, Goita does little talking, but a lot of action. Most of the AES generals, to be honest, he says Traore does more speeches out of all of them. Shout out to Provide Triggers for Evolution. She said Namibia is vast in terms of its landmass, very dry, desert-like, and home of the sand dunes. Driving through the sand dunes to where they meet the Atlantic Ocean is a marvelous sight. Just came from there. So shout out to Provide Triggers, who's always traveling. Is there any last thoughts on this prompt before we go to Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 tonight?
Let's ride.
All right. Let's go ahead. Let's do it then. Shoot the Breeze topic number 3 says, exposing the Kissinger report on population control. Exposing the Kissinger report on population control. This comes with a link that's going to take us. Wait a minute. Hold on. Maybe I didn't do it yet.
What year did it come out?
Just give me a second. This came out back in the day. This Kissinger died at 100. And this came out like in the late 60s, 70s.
Okay.
Just give me a second while it loads up in the background, and I'll share my screen. Okay.
It's gonna be good, Jack.
So yeah, I hope it's a good one. You guys should be able to see my screen now. We will watch and then we'll discuss.
Here to explain the Kissinger report, a key feature of the global population control push, penned by the man who passed away peacefully last week at the age of 100 years old. Dr. Brian Close is the Human Life International Director of Education and Research. He has long studied the impact of the late Secretary of State's report and is here to share with us his findings. So, Dr. Close, thanks for being here tonight.
It was great to be here.
Great. I'm excited for you to talk to us about this. So explain for the audience here tonight what the United States National Security Council promulgated back in December of 1974 with the National Security Memorandum 200, otherwise known as the Kissinger Report.
Well, back then, the National Security Agency, which at that point in time was comprised of, for this purpose, the Department of Defense, the State Department. We also had USAID, which is the United States Agency for International Development, and several other organizations which wrote something under the direction of Henry Kissinger called NSSM 200. NSSM 200, and you can find it online on the USAID website. What this did, the subtitle is called The Implications of Overseas Population Growth for U.S. Security and Economic Interests. And right in the document, in the first couple of pages, it says that the United States will need large and increasing mineral resources from lesser developed countries. And so we have to be able to hold down the populations of these countries in order to have access to their natural resources. And this was done through four means: comprehensive sex education for the children, widespread contraception and sterilization programs, the legalization of abortion, and coercion using food as an economic weapon or a weapon of war.
It is so sad. Like you said, a lot of this comes back to economic or political interests abroad. We don't want, I guess, from Kissinger's point of view, instead of the dignity of human life in the valley, we don't want too many people, right, out there in the world being able to thwart our plans abroad. So let's just kill them all, right? Ends up being the big push. And it's interesting, as you point out in the report, how it's hidden through altruistic, type language where it's, oh, no, we do this because we care about you. Of course, it's the farthest thing from the truth. Murder, how could that ever be And however, that's how they present it. We know with Margaret Sanger, right, the founder of Planned Parenthood, that's something she talked about a lot, is that she would go to, she was very racist, she was very pro-eugenics, but she went to specifically Black churches and the rest and said, no, you talk about abortion as if it's helping your Black congregation. Of course, that's not what she wanted. She didn't want to help the Black community whatsoever. She wanted to kill them off. But it's this idea of saying we're doing it for your benefit. So can you speak to that aspect as well? Because it's so evil and it's so everywhere, right? You're constantly hearing that pro-abortion language, that it's about love somehow and helping women and on it goes. But like you said, it covers up for something so evil.
Well, interestingly, if you go back to 1922, and you can find this book online as well, it's called The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy by Lothrop Stoddard. And is a favorite book of the latter-day racists we have in the country today. And Stoddard sat on the board of Margaret Sanger's American Birth Control League, which later became Planned Parenthood. And in this book, it talked about holding down the populations, especially in the Caribbean and Africa, because they were rising in population. And even back in 1920s, the white race was not replacing itself properly, especially in Europe. So this is where the racism really took off. And it went through to the 1960s when there were memos between Frederick Jaffe of the Population Council and the International Planned Parenthood talked about methods by which we can hold down the population. This is in 1968 and 1969. Everything from sex education to the children to putting birth control drugs in the water supply. Nothing was out of bounds. And I think it's fairly obvious that Kissinger and his fellow travelers got their ideas from people like Stoddard and Jaffe and these other people.
Wow.
Interesting stuff. I was thinking just the other day, how I feel like if you came into consciousness in the mid to late 90s, especially, there was three things you kind of encountered very early on. Malcolm X autobiography was a big reading thing at the time. Assata Shakur's book. And interesting enough, this Kissinger stuff on population control came up often in conscious spaces mid to late 90s in America, in the New York area at least. And I find it interesting that it's still relevant today. I see Rogerson seems to be eager to speak on it. So Rogerson, should read topic number 3, exposing the Kissinger report on population control. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, no. I was just agreeing with you. I didn't want to step on your monologue.
No. I threw it to you. So what are your
Okay, I
thoughts
can
on
do
what?
that. Well, I think what it does, it tells the fact that he acknowledged even in the 1920s that Pleasantville was having issues with their genetics and everything. But also the fact that these things can become values unto our community. That's the ill part. It's like how, you know what I mean? I've always wondered as a little black boy, when you look into our history, how did the black people back then, how did y'all believe them? What was they presenting to those black people in the 30s and the 40s? And what could they present to you in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and the 60s? To where you'd be like, all right, yeah, this is trustworthy. Not only is it trustworthy, but let's receive it exactly in the, I guess, in the couch way that they present it. And I didn't know that was what Planned Parenthood was. I didn't know that. Holy shit! I did not know that Margaret Sanger's, thing became Planned Parenthood. And when you talk to liberals about Planned Parenthood, you talk to black women about Planned Parenthood, it's like they present it as if it's on that health thing. And it's like, okay, well, this is based off of a subjective classification standard of another people, but people adhere to it. To me, that's the wildest thing.
Appreciate that, Roger's son. With that said, man, let me hear from Black Steel next. Black Steel would say.
So I got a different take on this myself. So I had to look up this One America News Network, OAN network, right? There are far right white supremacists. I wouldn't say white supremacists, but far right, conservative American type of network, right? They're like more extreme than Fox and further right than the Fox News. So a couple things. Number one, the idea of population control is kind of goes into this right-wing conspiracy, but they make it so they're really concerned about black people, which we know that's not true, right? There's been a lot of talk about the Great Replacement, the white genocide, and I say this in a funny way, as if white people are somehow under attack and their numbers are being diminished or whatever, right? But I don't know. It really, to me, when I've heard of Kissinger report, I understand that the idea that Earth is overpopulated is always been a white supremacist trope, because there's plenty of room for everybody. There's plenty of resources for everyone, but the reality is these resources are not distributed properly. When you have a country like the United States, who is only 5% of the world's population, but they use up so much of their resources, it's never been a matter of we don't have enough. But the idea that they're pushing abortion for population control, I've heard that before. But I do know that in many situations, right, these people will sit up here and they'll talk about how we shouldn't have abortion, but yet at the same time, they're not pro-life, they're pro-birth, right? So they don't give a damn about that kid once it's born. They'll cut, and this is coming from the far right movement, they'll cut money for social programs, they'll cut money for housing. Look, we just cut money for the food stamps, right? So they want you to give birth to the child, but they don't want to do anything to help that child live a healthy life, or live a fulfilling life. So they'll do everything possible to just make sure you have the baby, and then once the baby's here, fuck you. So I'm really skeptical when I hear this coming from these really far right conservative groups about talking negative about abortion, because you don't give a damn about kids. You don't give a damn about kids. Look at Every year in the United States,
Yeah.
we have a school shooting, multiple school shootings. I'm surprised we haven't had one yet. Probably because
Over
schools.
600 a year.
But yet, whenever there's any type of meaningful movement towards any type of gun control, oh, they're trying to take our guns. They want to. We got to protect our Second Amendment. So whenever you have a tip to improve the quality of life for children, especially in the United States, they don't give a damn about that. But they want to talk about abortion. They don't give a damn about abortion. They really want it. They really are concerned with the number of white people who have an abortion. But people have abortion because they can't take care of the kids. If you have my son is grown, but when you have child care in this country, you're talking about I know people who pay $500 a week per child. So how are you going to work with that? Most people are not going to have kids. They're concerned about the lowering birth rate of the country because, truth be told, the United States is below birth replacement level. So you have a situation where the people ain't have enough kids. But then you put the cost of living is so astronomically high, people can't afford to have kids. So you're worried about abortion, but you're not worried about the things that can improve the quality of life for people in the country. So people want to have kids in the first place.
Right.
So to me, it's a reality of misplaced priorities. That's just my thoughts on it.
Well put. I agree.
Exactly right. I appreciate that. Black Steel. D-Web, you heard what Black Steel had to say. What say you?
I mean, it's catch-22, right? Part of it's always funny to me, like how we hear a lot of people talk about how we can't these people can't raise children, such overpriced and stuff like that. When back in the day, our grandparents was able to raise 7 to 8 well-adjusted children, on half of what we get these days. The problem is self-reliance has been killed, right? We don't, most people can't fucking hunt. Most people can't do anything. Most people don't have a crop. They're not growing a garden in their backyard. It doesn't happen anymore. They killed self-reliance where we're dependent upon the machine. So that's why it's such a trope to have children these days, because we don't know how to do shit. Give most people a needle and thread and tell them sew some shit, sew a hole in a fucking pocket. They can't do it, right? So this is probably the most dependent on the system generation that we've ever had in life, which aids to the whole children thing. But the population thing is old. That's some old shit, bro. If you go back to the Georgia Guidestones, and Henry Kissinger has been one of the most malicious and evil people ever to exist. So it's no doubt that he would be on the population control thing. But a lot of these things, people don't know that a lot of what the World Economic Forum pushes, right? We tie to these world banks and things like that. Part of what they do is give each country like a credit score, right? In order for them to loan you money, to loan you anything, right? That's one of the reasons why Brazil, if you notice, Brazil maybe 30, 40 years ago considered a second world country, right? What they did was made a big push to reduce their birth rates, right? The 2.1 is the magic number, right? You get it below there or to there, then you get your up ranking in your credit rating as a country, right? That's why they was able to host the Olympics. They would have never thought about hosting the Olympics. That's why you see Brazil pushed on the major rear, as opposed to the African nations where they're deranked, right? They're having too many babies, too many black people are being born. And it was funny how, granted, this is like a right-wing channel. I seen that OAN. I know Black Steel was gonna catch that, but a broke clock is right twice a day, right? One of the things that they did say in there, or what they did push in there, is about how about Africa particularly, or even the population control a certain population, right? Bill Gates was very instrumental in Africa a lot, doing a lot of shit, right? One of the things he was pushing is this drought resistant corn, right? This drought resistant corn that could somehow stop starvation in Africa, right? In the reality, you don't know what any of this GMO laden shit is gonna do. We've already seen that they put shit in food and chemicals, things like that. There's so many products in the United States that is banned in other countries, right? You got to consider countries are at least continents like Europe and things like that. They ban American food. They're trying to get birth rates up, right? They're trying to have I seen Russia was offering like every child you have, you get more money, right? So that great replacement thing is a thing, but at the same time, there is a conjoined effort to reduce birth rates. The thing is, it's happening to the people they don't want it to happen to, right? Just like they had pushed abortions and put Planned Parenthood in a lot of black neighborhoods, what happened was the Beckys of the world started going to those same places and start having abortions as well, which white people already had problems birthing, children and things of that nature, right? So, what do you do when the rabbit got the gun, right? The thing that they put out there to reduce our population started affecting them. That's why you have these things called this great replacement theory. In reality, it's because the white folk ain't having enough babies, bro. You even see online a lot of rhetoric behind these mixed children being born. You see a lot of all this other stuff, and that's part of this. This is part of this whole thing, right? So it's a twofold thing where they want to reduce a certain population, but the population that they didn't want to big up, they didn't want to produce more black folks. So they're like, oh no, the thing that we put out to reduce the black population is actually turning against us. So we got to do something about it, right? So now they're kind of revealing the truths of what they've actually been doing, right? Even some of these right-wing channels, they're revealing what they wanted to really fucking do, right?
Right.
So that's what you're seeing here. That's all. None less, nothing more. But the population reduction, population control thing, that's old. That's old. It's some decades old. It's just not revealing, or people just not getting hip to it to this internet age. But I've read books back in like the 80s. If you read Behold a Pale Horse and shit back in the day, all this shit is already spoken on.
The birth of dearth.
Yep, exactly.
I remember they was talking about it big time in the late 80s. I remember paying attention to it, but the thing is, I don't think people like the way that they talk about it. Isn't it evil? Like to call Margaret Sanger evil. It wasn't calling her evil back in the day. And if they can see that evil, if they can see that systematic.
Oh no, they praised her. They praised her. She was praised.
Yeah, I mean,
all the time. Yeah,
they loved her. You know what I'm saying? White House, in her Klansman capacity, if you will. You feel me? The whole thing is, damn, I forgot my point. I forgot my point. All right, you got it.
That's all right, man. We have another panelist who we got to welcome in this week. Before that, though, let me just hit this comment here. Trigger Happy says, but Pan-Africanism will always keep our numbers afloat. When you are a tribalist, you will cry like South African men who hate when Nigerian men get with South African women. With that said, before that, Sister Cheryl in the chat said, exactly. Becky's getting lots of abortions, but it's not being recorded. Let's welcome in Sister Cheryl to the panel. How are you this week?
I'm well. Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can be heard.
Good evening, Cheryl. How you doing?
I'm good. How y'all doing?
Good, good. Thanks for coming through.
Mm-hmm.
So you know what the topic is, correct? You saw the the impassioned speech that was given. What say you to everything you've seen and heard?
So I like much of what everybody was saying about how, this population thing, it's not new, but it's like every decade they find different ways of being creative, like, and trying to reduce population amongst certain groups of people. I know when I was younger, I cannot remember the name of the birth control, but it was very popular. And as soon as I hit 18, the doctors were trying to give me this birth control. And to me, it was just like something, I was just like, why am I taking this? I know it's like, teenagers do what teenagers do, but, it just felt weird just having to take a pill every day and just to prevent something that can be prevented, with something like you can use condoms, you could do all these things. But it just for some reason didn't feel right. And I do remember about 10 maybe 15 years later, that same pill was on the television. And you know how this stuff comes up like, have you taken X and X? Have you taken such and such? You may be entitled to a lawsuit. And then they started going down the line of all of the things that the birth control pills were causing, all the infertility. Huh?
Was it Depo?
No, it wasn't. It was something else. I cannot remember for the life of me. I have to look it up later. I'll put it in the chat later. But yeah, and something to me just didn't feel right about it. And I just saw it like years later. I was like, I knew it. And it caused all types of cancer and infertility in women. And I was like, oh gosh, so I mean, it's definitely something to that. I will say nowadays it's less of, well, I mean, it's still all that stuff, it's still the foods, it's still all of this, America, the food production and all of that. But it's also for this generation, I guess, for more so for Gen Z. What's after Gen Z? Is it
Gen
I think,
Alpha.
is it Gen Alpha? Yeah. So it's
yeah.
Gen Z, and it's going to be for Generation Alpha. It's the gender wars. Now we probably got a little sneak peek of it um, in the '90s. Maybe we had a little, men are from women are from Venus, men are from Mars, something like that. We had these back and forths with men and women, but I think this gender war thing, how it's going on media, it's everywhere. I know a lot of people, you don't have threads, you may not have Twitter or Facebook or any of that, but that makes up the majority of social media. And the majority of the conversations are surrounding men against women. Oh, men are this. The feminist movement is
They used to call it the battle of the sexes back in the day, back in the late 80s and the 90s. It was always the battle of the sexes. And
yeah.
that shit.
But
And
you have
now it's a war.
yeah, it was a war, but man, I'm telling you, it's nothing compared to today. To some of this, how these, like women hate. There's a lot of women that hate men, and a lot of men that like
Shout
they
out to
just go
RTG.
back and forth at each other. It's so visceral and it's so bad. And I feel like that is also a form of population control because
Oh,
Cheryl, if I can interject
definitely.
really quickly,
yeah,
not
yeah,
only do they hate men, they
yes,
hate boys. There's
yes,
a whole
Mhm.
movement
yes,
of women who are saying, I'm going to either have a girl or an abortion, right?
yeah, it's
So
bad.
you have women who believe that men are inherently broken. What was the
Yeah.
one chick? I don't even want to mention that demon's name, right? I don't want to conjure her evil ass up.
Oh,
But
I know what you're talking
I know
about.
what I'm talking about. I want to bring that demon into existence, But
Synthetic beat.
she had a whole YouTube channel talking about why shouldn't black boys be aborted? They're
Woo,
dusty from birth. Now, how do
Mm.
you talk about a baby, right?
woo.
But and the thing is, whenever we talk about the issues of black people, black men, black women, black children, black girls, right?
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about systemic issues, right? Systemic issues, racism, so on and so forth. But when it comes to black boys, oh, they're just dusty, right? So there's no nuance to that conversation coming from that from a certain area when we talk about the battle of the sexes. Black men are just deficient because they're deficient, and that leads to, oh, I'm not gonna date a black man. That's what the whole divestiture movement comes from, right? That I'm
Yeah.
gonna divest from black men. Black men kill black women. Like white men don't kill white women, right? Like white men don't kill entire continents and wipe out entire ethnic groups.
That don't
And
count.
that don't count though. You have a white man. There was a story the other day. This white man here in Florida, his wife asked him to change the channel during Monday Night Football. He
Yeah.
killed her. Then he shot his stepdaughter in the head. Right. Then he killed himself. But then they're gonna show a picture. They smiling and laughing at the picnic and whatnot. Right. So
But that's the whole issue is that you have either side measuring the other by what their comfortable systematic lens is through viewing the other.
mm,
And that's why it's turned from battle of the sexes to full out war.
It's bad.
And and the thing is, this is the only thing it could grow into because there was no empathy from either side. The issue with Red Pill is that there was, well, one, it was stolen. All right, it started off as being some conscious, aware, woke. Right, Red Pill was wokeism when it first started. And then you had these incel ass pilgrims took it over, and they started putting relationship to it. Well, the black dudes who was, what I'm saying, with them in that regard, because they were STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and we're six figure and all this old bullshit. All right, well, they had to get out of those groups because they were too racist. So then they started making their own manosphere or whatever, right? The whole thing is it lacked empathy the entirety of the time. If you're going to talk about this woman and then you don't want this woman, Why are you talking about a woman that you don't want? If you got all this access to all these other women because of your whatever status is supposed to get you, you know what I'm saying? Why she's supposed to respect you, but you don't, whatever, all right? Then, you know what I'm saying, get the other women that's choosing. But no, I think what it did was that it opened up the battle of the sexes into this fucking war. It could have been something that called an empathetic accountability for it. Because let's say that, you know, you're talking to your wife. Some of these motherfuckers have never been married. You're not going to go with your wife as hard as some of these motherfuckers will go with black women on the motherfucking dime. You ain't going to get the fuck out of here.
I will say it's like, because there's a lot of black women that are saying it, but I think it's also important to remember, like, where are they getting it from? Like, when that's why so many, you know, how black women, like in the United States, we're always saying, well, black women are the most educated women, even over their men. Even when you look at other races, black women tend. I'm going somewhere with this, but
Yeah, for sure.
black women, they say black women are more educated, and they also on average earn more than black men, and that's different from any other race. All the other races of men, races of people, the men earn more than the women.
Okay.
But black women earn more. But look at what black women, look at what they're being taught in the university. Like, when they go to the university level, that's where they get these feminist talking points. So I know it's easy to blame black women, but their ideology comes from white.
Oh yeah, it's the conditioning. It comes from the framework of the conditioning, definitely.
And also, that's not a true statement. Black women do not out earn black men.
Really?
No, they do not. Black men, and another thing too.
Why is that a measurement though? Why is that a measurement of quality for any?
I was about to say that. Because we live in a white patriarchal system, whereas there's a standard. The man earns more, right? And if unless the man earns more money, the woman can't respect him. Now, for black people, that's never really been an issue because black women have always worked, right?
Yeah.
Most black women have had a job because black men didn't earn enough because we live in a racist society. But now the standard is that, okay, well, black women have more education than their men. That is the same for every racial group. White women have more education than white men. Asian women have more education than Asian men, right? That is, for some reason, they want to point it out for black people as if we are somehow deficient, right?
I know it wasn't. They just want our numbers to look good with everybody. I mean, this is the thing. What sets the qualitative measurement for what we deem as essential for the healthier we? I don't. This is the thing. I think what it is, it has us looking at this shit like we're two different demographics or some shit.
Yeah, because historically, but you got to remember, because when people make those statistics, they are like, everything that we do, like, is like based off of what white people do. So when white men and women have a fight, black people who are in the feminism and all of this liberal stuff, they think that, well, these are the same fights that are happening in black community. And it's not the same fight. The white man has always been at war with his woman.
Preach.
The black men and black women have been complementary until we came across their religions and until we came into their stuff. So even now we don't, like, black men ain't out here like, oh, I make more money than you. You're a woman. Black men don't do that.
That's
like,
goofy. That's goofy. Only okay. So you do have people picking up some of that ethos because, you know, it's popularity now. You know, and it's social media is a social factor all unto itself. It seems to be a magnification of like the worst attributes of people. So that's the thing. I don't. Once it's gotten to this level, I don't think you can change that. I think, you know, everybody like, you know what, the top is finna blow for all this shit, right? I think what we're seeing is the powder keg exploding, and we're like, okay, you know what? Can we stop that piece from flying over here, that piece from flying over here, whatever? I think what we're witnessing is the powder keg. We're not. It's not just things that we can mend, or if that is the case, I like to look at it like this. Let's say that you're looking at a body, anthropomorphize it, if you will, and that body has some form of affliction to it. Okay, is it a break? Is it loss of blood? Is it fracture, or is it gangrene? How bad are we weighing saying the issues affecting us? I think it's more like gangrene. And if it is gangrene, how much of that body are we losing? What percentage? You know what I'm saying?
But also too, we got to remember, this is social media, right? You have one thing that I thought was very interesting, right? They said something like half of all social media accounts are bots.
Yeah.
So they're bots. So Black people still love each other. Black people are still forming families. And especially when the economy and the economic situation is so bad, right? There's a lot of talk about I'm not going 50-50, or I need a man to submit, or I need a woman to submit to me, right? We have to understand these are people saying stuff online. To your point, they're not even in relationships. They're not even married. They don't have kids.
These younger Black generations are growing up calling their children bro. Okay, I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I'm like, what the fuck am I witnessing here? Like really? And we talking like brother and sister, brother and sister, bro. Like everybody's bro to them. It's like, wait a minute, man.
Well, that's because the family unit has become so disjointed, right? We have these conversations. Like a lot of these young people, they don't know. These young parents, they don't know because they don't know what they don't know.
So so that the whole question is, so then that means more than likely, if it's with these young parents at these age, I'm 46, I would say that it will be our generation that will be the parents, or maybe a little bit older of the Generation X, that would be the parents of these generations. So what was it that generation lost, or didn't instill? Like what if that was the last generation that would have been able to pass forward, those more healthier cultural traits of our, familial bonds and everything?
I would say respect is one thing. Another thing too, you had a lot of kids had to raise themselves, because again, I think the economy is a part of it. If you got the parents at work so long that the parents that nobody's home to cook food, I came from a generation where my mom was a nurse, right? She worked, but my grandmother was home, and my grandmother did a lot of stuff with me. My mom wasn't there, or I went, on my dad's side of the family, I was visiting with them. But you have a situation where parents are working multiple jobs to pay for stuff because the cost of living is so astronomically high. They're not able to really instill the values they would like to. That is a part of it. People are just trying to survive a lot of situations.
Yeah, it is. But I think
real quick. Oh, sorry to cut you off. Real quick too, man. I seen a report recent too. It said if you look at who spends the most time online, right, and they got it ranked by race or whatever, Black people was number one. I think Hispanic was second, and at the bottom was like Asian, right? Keep in mind a lot of these things that you see online, just to see what you're saying, Black Steel. Like a lot of these rhetorics we have online is the algorithm feeding you. You know what I mean? The people who mostly online. That's why a lot of this stuff you see is mostly online type of rhetoric, because they know that's where the majority of us are. And on top of that, like in real life, to be real with you as a man who holds it down and stuff, like even the most ardent of people who talk shit online, like the ardent of females, if you're like a real dude who hands it down and you're to be respected, you'll still get the same respect as the men in 1950s, right, with the right women. They can talk all this shit online they want, but in real life, when you're in their face and they see you a stand-up dude holding it down, your shit together, you're fine, right? You're fine. So that's just me. I think a lot of this, I ain't saying there's nothing that's bleeding into the population or whatever, but I believe if you're a stand-up individual and you build with other stand-up individuals, that is what it is. A lot of the stuff we see online is the lowest of the low. Well, are people just trying to get their views up, things of that nature? You know what I'm saying? Trying to go viral, things like that. So that's what I got.
But you hear something ridiculous. Go ahead, Sharon.
Yeah, I just want to say one more thing about the population control thing. So like I guess when I was growing up, like my mom would always say, go to school, get your degree, get your career, travel the world, do all these things before you decide to settle down, before you decide to have children. And, it's not that it wasn't good advice. Like I think it was good advice, but I think somewhere along the way, we like women got lost. Like like social media aside, I think women got lost in the career thing. And it doesn't mean that it's not possible for a woman to have a career and have a family. And I know this is kind of off topic, but it's kind of on topic of the population control because it's psychological. Because you have a lot of women now who think that they have to have a career, um, and the man that they're with has to also have a full-time career, and they also have to have children, but there's not enough time in the day for all three of those things. Like if you can make it work, that's great. Like I know some women, they do it, they're tired as hell, but they make it work. But I think there are a lot of women who don't even seek out men who have the same mindset as them, have the same values as them, that want to work and have them stay with the children at home, because women see staying at home as lazy. Okay, this is the type of mentality we're dealing with today.
Yeah.
So it is, yes, things are more expensive. Yes, but there are men that exist, Black men that exist that, um if you talk to them, if you see what their values are, um, and if you can humble yourself as a woman and not be so career driven, then you can have a family. You don't have to work yourself into the ground. You don't have to work yourself to death, and you can focus on your family, and you can have something on the side like that. For most women during, maybe decades ago, that was a life for them. There was nothing wrong with that. That was respectable. Today, these women don't want that. They get bored. They get late. They think it's lazy. So I think we need to bring back a certain type of mentality surrounding family and community. And you don't always, if you want to be a career woman, that's fine. But all of us can't be career women. We can't all be career women.
But wait a minute.
We had to keep it realistic, Cheryl. We had to keep it realistic, right? I think a lot of times these people get online, they see influencers. Oh,
Yeah.
I want to be out here taking trips, and I'm taking trips. I'm going to flights, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. That is not real fucking life. Real life is you gotta pay them bills, you gotta go to work, you gotta help them kids with their homework. That's real life.
But
And
what y'all,
real life is boring.
look, but that's what y'all need to take into consideration. It's more the environment. The whole thing is, so it started for you at home, right? But then it was substantiated by the environment. It's not just the propaganda, not just the literary propaganda. It's actually the environment that's the programming itself. So now you're engaging. Those minds are engaging. All of those, I guess you could say everything's been meta, if you will. Now you got those minds engaging all of those factors at like hyper mode. And saying they're constantly tuned into something that actually distorts the way that they perceive. Right now, we can say we can say that's attention, right? Okay, attention. But now, once people's so-called attention span gets to 7 seconds, I think they say that's what the inevitable average of the attention span is supposed to be. 7 seconds. Yeah. Due to I'm gonna say being due to the transhumanism factor that is social media with a young mind and the culture that is created through that as a lens. You know what I'm saying? We're talking as far back this shit already, what, 15 years back now, Vine and all the rest of that, right? All the way up until now. I mean, look at Kai Cenat. He's a world, he hypercoons about it, and he's one of the most you know what I'm saying, sought after icons for all the youth and everything. And it's like he's doing everything that a pilgrim say that a stereotypical, you know what I'm saying, you know, black coon is supposed to do or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You're bucking your eyes, you dancing with chicken, you fake, you know what I'm saying? You're faking it with the reality of the prison industrial system. It's hey, you know what I'm saying? I have y'all seen that? Have y'all seen the artificial intelligence of those apes in cotton fields? The fact that somebody, you know what I'm saying, got the gall to do that is it's like all of that shit that we didn't get handled before, it never got handled. Anything, any negation that's ever hit the black community, ever, it's never been alleviated since crack, right? Whatever, since crack, everything that's hit the black family, the black community, the black family model, all of that, it's always stayed. So I understand that, you know, people are like, hey, we do this, we get better. We do this, we do this, we do this. The thing is, the issue is that the environment is poisonous. And we don't think that we have to fortify ourselves mentally, physically, or spiritually against a poisonous environment. I ain't saying we can't create nothing within it, but to have to have a more subjective, you know, existential perspective of why we build and what we building in it. Not just because, oh, okay, this, you know, this is what they give us, this is the rules, and this is what they say, and all this. I think it likens itself to more of internal valuing through that pre-emancipation conditioning. I'll put it like that.
Good conversation, guys. Brother D-Web had to step away to tend to his children, ironically. But it was a pleasure having him here tonight. And he tells me their show on KWAZ Radio. Remember, this show, the Bitter Medicine Podcast, is part of a podcast network called KWAZ Radio. D-Web has a show that they're looking to bring back after a lengthy hiatus. He tells me it should be back early this year. So look out for that. They usually go live on Sundays, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. I want to go to the last topic of the night. We run from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturday nights, for those of you who are new here. We tend to try to get through 5 topics. We're not going to get through 5 tonight. We'll just get through 4. But if you'd like to have topics of your own choosing discussed, just join the Discord. The link to join the Discord is in the chat. It's in the description of the video. So just go there, click the link, join the Discord, navigate to the Shoot the Breeze Topics channel, and post your prompts. Prompts should be accompanied with an attachment to say something like YouTube or Twitter would be ideal. YouTube, Twitter, and TikTok would be more so ideal. So yeah, you can join the Discord so your topics can be discussed as well. Shoot the Breeze topic number 4 says the sick Western mind, which I feel like we've been discussing that for a little while tonight. The sick Western mind. This comes with an attachment that takes us to X, I believe. Yes. It's going to take us to X and make sure I got it. And then once it comes up, I'll make sure you guys can see it from where you are. Just give me a second. This is taking a minute to load. Okay. Looks like we're getting through, so I could share my screen. You should be able to see it takes us to X. And a post from Zoom Africa, the caption says, African lady talks about the unethical practice of foreign photographers and videographers exploiting African children by taking their pictures without consent, often portraying them in vulnerable situations to perpetuate negative narratives about Africa. They'll one day regret. So this video, almost a 2-minute video, we'll play it from the start and then we'll discuss it.
You see those foreigners that will leave their country and then carry their big cameras and fly to Africa and go to any country, travel straight to the village and start recording and taking pictures of random kids having the best time of their lives, most of them probably without clothes on, without taking consent from their parents or their guardians. One day we'll have the time to address you. Because tell me why you will leave your country and then come to our continent and then you feel like it's comfortable for you to go and just see kids having the best time of their lives, by the way. Most of them, no clothes on, playing around, enjoying community. And then your first thought is to take images of these kids and not explain to these people's families or these children's families the scope of which you use those images, and not even telling them that you will go and share naked pictures of their children on your social platform or on your TV channels because you want to fit a certain narrative. You want to continue pushing that certain stupid narrative that Africans are poor and suffering. The day we will have your time. I'm just waiting for when Africans will truly wake up and realize that we are being treated with indignity. It's because I as an African woman, would dare not do that to your kids. I can't come to your country and take my phone out and start recording images of your children and pictures of your kids and come back to my country and post them online without your consent. You would drag me to filth. Then why do you think it's okay for you to come to my continent and then do the exact same thing? You don't even tell these parents. They may not even understand what you're using these images for. Because of lack of understanding, there will definitely be a time when you're going to regret your actions. So if you like, continue coming to Africa with your huge ass cameras and your expensive phones and keep recording images of kids. The day we'll have your time, we'll address you. But for now, keep going.
Yeah, very interesting discussion she's having there. I experienced that many years ago. My youngest son must have been, let's see, he's 15 now. He must have been 5. I'm in a park here in New York. And I turned my head for a second, and an older white guy with a camera, I found he's showing my son a picture that he took of him from a distance. And I asked this old fellow, what the fuck you think you're doing? What the fuck do you think you're doing? He started copping pleas, and he basically skedaddled. I told him to delete that shit. Why are you taking pictures of my children without any consent, and then you're brave enough to go and talk to the kid? Like, this is why I said last week, we got to start doing some straightening in Black society, not just amongst ourselves or not just with our open enemy, but amongst ourselves too. We got to get some straightening going on. Afro Native World says, only ask for the donation you can do within your budget, as we have a lot of projects. I don't know if that was meant for me for this chat, but I will say that applies here too, man. Hit the Cash App, as Brother Bakari would say, or use the YouTube donate button. There's a lot of things we want to try to get done, and donations will help a whole lot and help those things to come to fruition much faster. In the chat, Sister Cheryl says, I'm going to start doing that. Holler. So I'm going to start with Sister Cheryl. Sister Cheryl, what did you take from this conversation?
No, I was just making fun though in the chat because it is annoying when white people do that. Like, and we should have some type of parameters for if they come in our environment and start doing stuff like that. And sometimes they do it and they be doing it on the slick. They be just having their phone out and they just like do it real quick. But I was just thinking, man, we can't catch them all. I'm just gonna go to Kensington and Philly, and I'm gonna take me some pictures of some heroin addicted and some opioid addicted white people, and I'm gonna put it up on the internet and see what happens. Cause what y'all gonna do about it? I mean, they can't fire me. Like, so I mean, what they gonna do? Cause what you gonna do? Like, they don't respond unless you do something tit for tat. So
Yeah, my computer's freezing up a little bit here. But yeah, I feel you on that. A friend of mine who used to come on the panel a lot during the pandemic, a friend of mine named Kevin Carre. Some of you might remember him. He's a photographer. And he actually was doing that years ago as like a little bit of a project. I mean, I remember him telling me, I wasn't aware of this part of it. He said, in the 80s, the mid 80s and stuff, he could remember being a kid in New York, and those magazines were publishing black folks just fucked up freebasing and all that kind of stuff. And some of those guys who went on to win Pulitzers and all of that, showing black struggle, black disaster. And Kevin Carr was doing that for a little while. He was taking pictures of them white, methed out folks out here in the city and stuff like that. And I applauded him for that because he taught me something. I didn't know that was happening or that had happened. And he had the awareness when he became a photographer to say, you know what, I'm gonna do some of that shit too. That's what I like. I like us. Thinking along those types of lines. Black Steel, the sick Western mind. You heard what this black woman had to say about the continent. What say you?
Ooh, it's not just a continent, man. It's not just a continent. And not only that, but we got to be aware of AI, right? So, black people, don't be careful with the pictures of your children you put online, because the pedophiles, they're able to take your pictures of your children and use AI and come up with pedophilic videos. And it happened to, what's the chick name, the rapper? Cardi B. She had her daughter online, and somebody made a whole AI video of her daughter being raped. It was terrible, right? But the technology to do that exists out here. So we have to be very careful, because these things can be done. This is a couple of years ago, to your point about people winning awards. There was a white photographer, I believe it was in Sudan, and it showed a black child who was dying of starvation. There was a vulture hovering over him, right? And the dude took a picture of the black child literally dying. He didn't offer help, but he was able to snap a picture of the vulture waiting for the child to die, right? And he got so much pushback from the world. I think he ended up committing suicide after that. He said he could never get the image out of his mind of that child. It was during some war in Sudan during a famine, and he could never get the image. But how he won a Pulitzer Prize watching a black child die. This is nothing new. We just got to be careful. We got to be careful, right? I think a lot of the issues boil down to this, right? Black people are at war with the Europeans, right? We've been at war for 500 years, but the only people who seem to realize it are white people. All they do is attack us, murder us, kill us, slander our name, destroy our history, and we treat each situation like it's a battle and it's not a war, right? This is we get mad, we protest, and then we go back to living our lives. And white people are just continuously coming up with new ways to screw with us, because they realize that they are our enemy. And that's a problem for us. So I don't know, man. I just nothing. There's nothing new under the sun. I think it was Khalid Muhammad said that if you think the cracker from today is any different from the cracker from 500 years ago, you are a damn fool. And you can see these patterns of behavior that white people engage in, right? They're not new. They just, and when the technology improves, they just try to come up with new ways of recreating the same abusive relationship they've had with us for the past 500 years. That's my take on it.
Yeah, this is why I like to have folks like Black Steel and others like him around, because he knows, he has the memory and the awareness to tie a topic into something going on right now. And that was a good tie right there. I just yesterday was sitting at my computer on Twitter, and I noticed all of these prompts for Grok, which is an AI from Elon Musk in there. And there's all these people say, hey, Grok, put her in a string bikini or put her in dental floss. And I saw so many people just doing this thing, you know, and I'm sure if I navigated further down that rabbit hole, I'll probably find some really disgusting stuff. But it's interesting that there's nothing new under the sun, like Black Steel said. Things come back around. It just looks a little different, but it's the same basic concept. And so, yeah, that's a good point. We have to be careful with our children now being taken, used, and abused in a digital format. That's a very, very good point by Black Steel. Is Rogue's son back yet? I know he said he's going to step away, but you know, this
Also,
is the
too,
last.
I would also say before we go on to the next, just the overall, you know, like I said, how they take video pictures of the children and whatnot. Be careful. Watch your kids online too. Those of you who have young children, watch your kids online, and watch who they talking to, because they're out there taking pictures and, you know, engaging with the young people. You got to be careful.
Excellent point. Sister Shirley, you want to add any last thought here? I guess not. You know what? I'm not even gonna go to the next prompt. I'm gonna end the show there. I will ask though, before folks, if they're still here on the panel, I would ask you guys to give me a shout out, something positive you saw during the week, something positive that happened in your life, etc. You know, shout out all concern me even, right? Like Black Steel just talked about, be careful with your kids on AI and online, talking to strangers and all that stuff. Shout out whatever you feel is necessary to shout out this week. I'm going to go to Black Steel because he's the only one that I think is still here. Black Steel, what would you like to shout out this week?
Just shout Happy New Year to everybody, man. Shout out to Bitter Medicine Podcast. You know, we made it another year. Shout out to everybody this year who made it. It's been even though it's only been 3 days, it's been a rough year. So shout out to everybody. You know, we're gonna hang in here. We're gonna make it through, guys. We all we got.
Absolutely. Shout out to you for being here. You guys in the chat can post whatever you want to shout out as well. I'll read it on air. Sister Cheryl back? Is Rogue's son back? Any one of those two back?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sister Cheryl, you want to shout out? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Shout out to my son. He's 3, but he's gonna be starting basketball in a couple of weeks. So shout out to him with his little self.
That's funny. Is your husband a big basketball player?
He's not a basketball player, but he watches he'll watch some of the games of college games in the pro.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, shout out to all of Sister Cheryl's family, particularly the little one. Shout out to you guys. Trigger Happy in the chat says, shout out to Ghana exiting the IMF. Shouts out to them. Afro Native World echoes the idea of big up little one. So shout out to them, man. My shout out goes to Buana. I was there, Reese. I was just there going through the same thing. So shout out to you. Having to deal with the death of a family member, particularly a parent. Be well, my friend. I'll see you when you return, but take your time to do that. Take your time to do that. Shout out to Brother Bakari. Brother Bakari is really living up to what a Gaviite is supposed to be about. He is the guy. He's the one person here who really reaches out to everyone, I think. I don't know if he reached out to Black Steel yet, but he keeps up with me, Buana, I think Kofi, the Black Critic, and others. So shout out to Brother Bakari for, reaching out to folks and making sure we're good, man. I hope you're good as well. We will be back next week. That's already the first episode of 2026. We'll be back for number 2 next Saturday. So again, join the Discord, link in the description. Post your topics for Shoot the Breeze, and I'll get to them eventually. If I don't, after a while, send me a DM and remind me to post those topics. Okay, then. Until next time, guys, you guys be good. Peace.
Thanks for listening to the Bitter Medicine Podcast with your host, Koku. If you like what you just heard, we hope you pass along our web address, bittermedicineblogs.com, to your friends and colleagues, and share our show to all your social media. Be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous podcasts. This has been a KWAZ radio production. Join us next time for another session of the Bitter Medicine Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at Bitter Medicine Show, Twitter, Bitter Meds, Tumblr, Bitter Meds, Instagram, Bitter Medicine.